deserve a fucking ass whooping. All of you, get back in the closet. Go fuck yourself.
How much does it cost for fascism? How much do the taxpayers have to pay for a fascist country?
They're evil. They are actively doing evil. So treat them like the evil that they are.
The right to exist argument has been used now to the point where what it's going to mean is that the Israel you're talking about will include the annexed and illegally occupied West Bank. It's very interesting, the Israeli government has never said where it thinks the borders of Israel really ought to be and what it would settle for. I think it would be an immense help if it tells us where it thinks Israel's boundaries should be. Every other country does do that.
It's time to stop pretending otherwise. It's time to be ruthless, and time to afford them the same amount of grace that they give to their Palestinian victims, because they are only going to get more and more ruthless with their victims if you don't.
Mic check, 1, 2. It's kind of dark. I'm going to turn on that lamp. We're going to start with headlines and then go into more specific stories. Welcome to the stream. It's Pillow Crafter. What's up? Welcome.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel continuing its campaign to erase Gaza City by systematically bombing residential high-rise buildings, schools, homes, and tent encampments. Targets struck on Sunday included the Islamic University and the Roya Tower, which house media and UN offices. Israeli officials claim 250,000 Palestinians have left Gaza City in recent days, but residents of the city say there's no safe place to go as Israel moves to displace the city's entire population.
I wish someone would.
Dude, look at that.
Israel moves to displace the city's entire population.
It just goes on forever, dude. Fuck.
I wish someone would look at us, the Palestinian people, in a human way. In European countries, there are animal rights, taking care of the animals and the birds. No one is looking after us, the people of Gaza. They are not looking for these children. Our children either die from hunger or strikes, or either they're displaced from the north to the south in harsh conditions. We are approaching winter in tents. Tents don't protect us. In the summer, during the heat, in the winter, nothing.
Israel killed at least 53 Palestinians Sunday, another 25 so far today, including 6-year-old twins. Meanwhile, the number of Palestinians who've starved to death has reached 422. We'll go to Gaza after headlines. On the diplomatic front, Arab leaders are holding an emergency meeting in Qatar today to discuss Israel's deadly strike last week targeting Hamas leaders in Doha. Ahead of the meeting, Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani condemned what he called Israel's barbaric attack.
This Israeli aggression will not lead to anything but aborting de-escalating efforts and confirm the Israeli government's intentions to reject peaceful paths to resolving the Palestinian issue and to continue defying international will and the UN Charter, as evidenced by repeated statements by Israeli officials regarding the annexation of Palestinian territories and the illusions of a greater Israel. Israel's barbaric and demagogic practices will not deter us from continuing our sincere efforts with the Arab Republic of Egypt and the United States to stop this unjust war.
Al-Thani's comments.
So they're going to go to Egypt, and we saw yesterday on the Anti-Empire Project with John Elmer. They were saying that, yeah, I trimmed my beard a little bit. I was looking a little scraggly there. But, yep. I know, it's like, where did my chin even begin and end, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, there it is. But yeah, Egypt was basically like, if you try that shit on us when we're trying to do our diplomatic talks, we're going to go to war with Israel. And they thought that was a bit of chest pumping. Like, they're not actually going to go to war with Israel, but they were extremely stern. It's like, do not try that bombing shit on us, Israel, when we are trying to do diplomatic talks in Egypt. That's kind of crazy. The talks are getting physically closer to Israel. I'm sure it's very tempting for their psycho asses.
This came a day after he had dinner with President Trump in New York. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Israel for a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Rubio will then travel to Doha to meet with Gulf leaders. In the occupied West Bank, the Israeli army raided the home of the Palestinian activist and filmmaker Bassel Adra, who won an Oscar for the documentary No Other Land. Bassel Adra said, quote, "The police, the army came when the settlers were attacking us. They did not stop them."
Incredible documentary if you haven't seen it.
One of the settlers chased one of the Solidarity activists and he beat her on the ground. The soldiers were watching, didn't do anything, Adra said. The film No Other Land documented efforts by settlers to forcibly displace Adra's community in the area known as Masafayata. In Utah, the 22-year-old man accused of assassinating the right-wing activist Charlie Kirk is scheduled to appear in court on Tuesday. Tyler Robinson was detained Thursday night after he reportedly confessed to his father, who then reached out to a youth pastor who called the U.S.
Everybody was speculating that the father wanted to turn him in to collect the $100,000 reward. He basically gave the reward, his father basically gave the reward to this family friend who already had a background in police work to be like, hey, it's my son. I'm going to turn him in. So because it was the family friend that made the call, he's the one who provided any information to help lead to the arrest. So, dude, Sappy Sabs and a couple other channels are just melting down into conspiracy. Like, dude, Sabby had this dude on last night who was talking about how the bullet couldn't have come from the front and it had to have been a patsy in the crowd. I'm like, what are we doing, man? Like,
marshals. Robinson is reportedly not cooperating with investigators and is being held under special watch. Charlie Kirk was fatally shot while speaking at a campus event at Utah Valley University Wednesday. Authorities are still trying to determine a motive in the killing. Tyler Robinson grew up in a deeply Republican family. Authorities say Robinson engraved messages into bullet casings with references to various online and video game memes. Utah's Republican Governor Spencer Cox has claimed Robinson had leftist ideology but did not share any evidence. There's also been speculation Robinson may have been influenced by a far-right movement known as Groypers, which is tied to the white nationalist Nick Fuentes. Governor Cox said Tyler Robinson's roommate has been cooperating with investigators. Cox also said Robinson was in a romantic relationship with...
Dude, the fact that they have all that without even talking to him, really? I think they don't really need his input to put together a motive. God damn.
His roommate, who is transitioning from male to female. This is Governor Cox speaking Friday.
Wait, say that again?
Nationalist Nick Fuentes. Governor Cox said Tyler Robinson's roommate has been cooperating with investigators. Cox also said Robinson was in a romantic relationship with his roommate, who is transitioning from male to female. This is Governor Cox speaking Friday.
I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here, and that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable.
Well, Utah Governor Spencer Cox said there's one person responsible for Charlie Kirk's killing.
He's changing his tune. Like, he was part of this is part of like an ongoing political attitude from the left and stuff. I think he was just, he very lightly touched on that, but he was mainly focusing on how we all need to pray and that how the death penalty is still legal, you know, really bringing down the temperature.
President Trump sent a very different message when he appeared on Fox News Friday morning.
How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime. The radicals on the left are the problem, and they're vicious, and they're horrible, and they're politically savvy.
Trump also called for Democratic donor George Soros to be jailed. Trump's top advisor, Stephen Miller, has also threatened to target and dismantle progressive organizations after Kirk's killing. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. More than 100,000 anti-immigrant protesters marched through the streets of central London, clashing with police, injuring at least 26 officers in one of Britain's largest far-right demonstrations.
If you want to get conspiratorial about this, I mean, there's nothing to really compare it to besides the Reichstag fire. At least that is how Donald Trump is treating it. It was used as a pretext to claim that communists were plotting against the German government and induced President Paul von Hindenburg to issue the Reichstag fire decree, suspending civil liberties and pursue a ruthless confrontation with the communists. This made the fire pivotal in the establishment of Nazi Germany.
In its history. The march was organized by the anti-immigrant activists.
Like, Taylor Lorenz has her head in the sand in comparison to her attention to other, like, stories. I could not believe she said that shit.
That's Tommy Robinson and feature
saying that, like, that kind of rings a little hollow when our rights are already being stripped away. It was like, you don't know how much worse it can get, Taylor.
Far-right politicians from Germany and France as speakers. Elon Musk also spoke virtually to the crowd, saying, quote, "We must have revolutionary government change," unquote. Several speakers paid tribute to Charlie Kirk. At the rally, the Stand Up to Racism campaign organized a counter-protest, attracting 5,000 people. A teacher at the counter-protest speaking to Reuters said, quote, "The idea of hate is dividing us, and I think the more that we welcome people, the stronger we are as a country," unquote.
I think the difference between now and, you know, the era of Nazi Germany is that, I mean, the population alone is vastly different. It's just harder to galvanize an entire country like the United States in comparison to Germany back then.
Quote. Elon Musk is also in the news today after his satellite internet service Starlink suffered a global outage today, impacting tens of thousands around the world, including the Ukrainian military. On Sunday, Ukrainian drones struck one of Russia's largest oil refineries, the Piracy refinery in Russia's Leningrad region, causing a fire. It comes as Ukraine has been attacking Russian oil infrastructure for weeks. Meanwhile, Romania says a Russian drone entered its airspace Saturday. The Romanian Defense Ministry issued a statement saying that it, quote, "strongly condemns the irresponsible actions of the Russian Federation," unquote. Last week, Russian drones also entered Poland's airspace before NATO jets shot them down. The International Federation of Journalists has condemned Israel for killing at least 9 Yemeni journalists in a strike last week, targeting the offices of a newspaper controlled by the Houthi government in Sana'a. Some reports say as many as 25 journalists were
one of 2 newspapers that were bombed. Just murdering journalists.
Killed in the strike. IFJ General Secretary Anthony Belanger said, quote,
"In a foreign country, which is crazy, Israel killing Houthi journalists."
The Federation of Journalists has condemned Israel for killing at least 9 Yemeni journalists in a strike last week, targeting the offices of a newspaper controlled by the Houthi government in Sana'a. Some reports say as many as 25 journalists were killed in the strike. IFJ General Secretary Anthony Belanger said, quote, "Targeting journalists is a grave violation of international law and an attack on the public's right to know," unquote. On Sunday, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau expressed regret over the recent ICE raid that detained 300 South Korean workers at a Hyundai battery plant in Georgia. Landau met with Korean First Vice Foreign Minister Park Yoon-joo in Seoul and discussed a new visa category for Korean professionals. That's according to the South Korean Foreign Ministry.
And how do you feel denying these people their rights? Regret. Great.
Friday, the South Korean workers landed in Seoul to cheer in crowds at the airport a week after being chained and handcuffed by ICE. In a post on social media, President Trump wrote, quote, "I don't want to frighten off or disincentivize investment," he said. On Friday, Sushila Karki, Nepal's former Chief Justice, was sworn into office as interim prime minister after more than 70 people were killed during anti-corruption protests led by the country's Gen Z movement. The protests were sparked earlier this month by a social media ban and escalated into attacks on politicians' homes. The parliament was also set on fire. Karki becomes Nepal's first female prime minister.
That footage is crazy. The first female prime minister as a result. Wow.
We are here to serve the country, and we will only stay here for 6 months, not more than that. After completing all the tasks and responsibilities, we will be free, and we will hand it over to the new ministers in the parliament. We have made this promise.
They like took down the government and installed like somebody's mom to like fix everything. Like, all right, we're gonna take care of this in about 6 months, and then you can have your government. Oh man, that's awesome.
The Venezuelan government has accused the U.S. Navy of raiding a fishing boat in Venezuelan waters. Personnel from a U.S. warship reportedly boarded the boat.
The government's been put in timeout.
Has accused the U.S. Navy of raiding a fishing boat in Venezuelan waters. Personnel from a U.S. warship reportedly boarded the boat and detained 9 fishermen for 8 hours. This comes just 2 weeks after the U.S. blew up a boat off the coast of Venezuela, killing 11 people who the U.S. claimed were drug smugglers. On Saturday, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Ivan Gil decried the U.S. action.
The most advanced pirates in the world, in human history, the United States and Israel.
El gobierno venezolano exige.
The Venezuelan government demands the United States immediately ceases these actions that put the security and peace in the Caribbean at risk.
In a midnight post on social media, President Trump vowed to call a national emergency and federalize Washington, D.C. after the district's mayor, Muriel Bowser, said D.C. local police would...
They're like fair weather fascists. They're just like only doing piracy on the on-season.
not cooperate with ICE. Last month, Trump deployed over 2,000 National Guard troops in D.C., prompting mass demonstrations by residents. It comes as President Trump told Fox News Friday he'll deploy the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee, saying, quote, Memphis is deeply troubled. Speaking to CNN, the mayor of Memphis, Paul Young, said he's not happy with the decision. In other immigration news, ICE shot and killed a man.
Trump looks at the demographics of Memphis and is just like, Memphis is deeply troubled.
Paul Young said he's not happy with the decision. In other immigration news, ICE shot and killed a man in the Chicago suburbs who authorities say was resisting arrest on Friday during a traffic stop. 38-year-old Silverio Villegas Gonzalez allegedly dragged an ICE agent with his car who later fired his weapon at the man. In a statement, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights said, quote, this killing is the latest in a mounting pile of evidence that Trump's mass deportation machine is completely out of control.
I saw the video. The dude was not being dragged. He was walking alongside the car, like stumbling, because, yeah, I don't know, he's just awkward. And he had like one of his arms, or at least two of his arms inside the window. Like, well, yeah, because you're reaching in the car. I don't know. If he was an ICE agent, then I don't believe that he identified himself as a police officer. And having a bulletproof vest with the ICE patrol emblazoned on it, that's not identifying yourself as a police officer.
Quote, protesters denounced ICE's killing of Villegas Gonzalez.
This is not fair for our hardworking people who come out here to this country to earn a living. And I just want to say God bless all. Hopefully it gets best wishes for everybody. Hopefully everything gets better situations. But we just need to stop scaring our people.
Meanwhile, ICE agents in Chicago reportedly abducted William Jimenez on Friday. Jimenez is a day laborer who's suing off-duty Chicago police officers working as security for Home Depot for abusing migrant day laborers. Jimenez's lawyer, Kevin Herrera, claims he was taken into ICE custody in retaliation for his lawsuit, saying Jimenez is, quote, again being profiled not only for being a Spanish-speaking person in another country, but for being someone who exposed racism and abuse of power in the United States, unquote. Homeless advocates are denouncing Fox News host Brian Kilmeade, who openly called for mentally ill and housed people to be executed. Kilmeade made the comment during an episode of Fox.
Yeah, by lethal injection, just like on the street.
And Friends.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill him.
On Sunday, Kilmeade apologized on air for making what he called, quote, extremely callous remark, unquote. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has endorsed Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York City. Mamdani won the Democratic primary in June, but many establishment Democrats have yet to endorse him. Mamdani identifies as a Democratic socialist. Governor Hochul wrote online on Sunday, quote, New York City deserves a mayor who will stand up to Donald Trump and make life more affordable for New Yorkers. That's Zohran Mamdani, Hochul wrote. A major bike race in Spain was forced to prematurely end on Sunday when a massive pro-Palestinian protest in Madrid interrupted the final stage of the Spanish Vuelta. As many as 100,000 took part in Sunday's demonstration, which was organized in part to protest the inclusion of an Israeli team in the race. Meanwhile, in New Zealand, as many as 50,000 people took part in the pro-Palestine March for Humanity rally in Auckland on Saturday. Protest organizers called on the New Zealand government to impose sanctions on Israel. And many of television...
That's the type of force... Wait, holy shit, apparently a black man might have been lynched at a Delta State University today? What the fuck? What the fuck? Hold up. Authorities identify student found dead at Delta State University. No foul play. Classes canceled at Delta State after body found. Body found hanging at Delta State University in Cleveland. Student found hanging from tree. No foul play suspected. 47 minutes ago. There's no evidence of foul play. What? Authorities are saying no foul play, but he was hanging from a tree with broken legs. Yeah, when I see... Dude. Yeah, I don't believe the police for a second. Even before learning that he had apparently broken legs. I'm not gonna disable my ad blocker just to read that you're going with the police story. Fuck off. Some of these websites are trash. People are only claiming lynching on X, apparently. Well, let's go to X. Some are saying broken legs aren't either weighing hanging from a tree. Does not scream no foul play. Yeah. Both his arms and leg were fractured. I mean, you can climb a tree with broken legs, but not with broken arms as well.
The name Trayvon Reed needs to ring all over the United States right now.
One, how do you walk up?
That is my cousin.
This is horseshit.
This is the second incident that has occurred within the last 5 years at this campus. Delta State University has had a run-in with me and their policemen. They tried to lock me up for no reason, and it didn't succeed in their favor. I went on a 9-month probation, and that's it. This year, just today, it was reported that my cousin was found hanging from a tree, and they trying to rule it as a suicide. Now, I just got off the phone with one of my cousins. She said she seen the reports, and it said that he was beaten and bruised. Both his arms was broken, and he had a broken leg. I'm gonna let y'all do the math. Now, this school has history for being racist. Even going all the way back to the 1980 situation that happened with the sit-in. I love to refer to that situation because that was one of the significant situations that happened with one of the black revolts that happened at the school. But still, I'm trying to be composed in this video, and I'm trying to keep it all together. But it's a lot of shit that happens on that campus that don't nobody do shit about. It was incidents before my big incident happened, and that I reported that nobody did nothing about. Somebody tried to report me for a hate crime, and they was the one being homophobic, transphobic, and being racist. And they was trying to lock me up until I had multiple people come out and speak against him. There was an incident that I reported that it was a group of white students in a white truck while I was a freshman. They yelled at me and my friends and called us a bunch of monkeys. Please do a deep dive on this. Please, 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 please do your research on this. Do not let them sweep nothing else under the rug. Enough is enough. It is 2025 and bullshit after bullshit after bullshit is still.
Bro, I have chills. Did you see the tears streaming down his face? The police lie all the time. That guy doesn't seem like he's lying. George Floyd is trending. Holy shit. Not trending is insane, yeah. Yeah, that isn't a lying face. Exactly, dude. Not even the best actor in the world can recreate that. George Floyd is just trending with Charlie Kirk, I think. God. We'll wait for more headlines on that, but yeah, not trending is insane. Or even being featured in the news. Four NFL teams didn't honor Charlie Kirk, and that was trending earlier, but that isn't. Is crazy. Dude, when you hear the news that a black person is hanging from a tree, why aren't we all just dropping everything to investigate every fucking detail of that? Let me show you something. I keep pulling this up, but like, Emmett Till's historical markers are now in the National Museum of American History because they were defaced by racists. It hauntingly documents how racism was never solved, that America remains cursed by its own white supremacy because it has never fully reckoned with it. All these mass shooters, they are overwhelmingly white. They are aggrieved white men, typically, who feel like when things didn't go right, they were owed something more. When in reality, America has moved on from indicting marginalized people to just fully marginalizing the poor. So if you're white, you could fall through the cracks as well. They don't give a fuck about you either. But they especially do not like minorities. And who's easiest to exploit right now and strip away rights than immigrants? What kind of shit like this do we have to have before we start respecting all marginalized communities? Like our Latino community. And organizing like this, you can stop traffic. There's no police force, there's nothing that can stop you. You are just marching wherever the fuck you want to march because it's your city. Dude, an injustice to one is an injustice to all. Like, the person on the street is also you, as James Baldwin said. We got fuckers like Charlie Kirk trending with his stupid ass empathy quote. Somebody needs to show Hassan that story so his whole chat will look into it. That's how like 1/4 of the Kirk stuff came out. Damn. Yeah, you're right. I wonder if he's live right now. Yeah, he is.
Hey, can people get a little bit more in return for their productive labor, for their output? No! That's socialism. That's terrifying. That's bad. Why do you want to reward lazy people? They're not working hard. And this is not a CEO saying this. This is not the owner of a mega corporation saying this. This is Americans who work that are saying this.
Messages as I
think about that. They've been so brainwashed and so fucking brain broken that they turn around and say, people just like me, working an honest job, people that look exactly like me, people that have the exact same class interests, they're bad people. They're the real enemies, actually. And not capital. Not capitalism. God forbid. And they fucking toil away.
Yeah, I know.
They get their little treats on the sideline.
Got timed out.
So that, you know, for a brief moment, they feel a sense of autonomy, a sense of purpose in their lives, a sense of humanity in their lives, and they just move along with their day. And change seems impossible. Change in the appropriate direction seems impossible. But as material conditions worsen, day in and day out, people get resentful. People get angry. And they're...
Alright, we planted the seed. We'll, I can chat again in 0 seconds. Alright. I guess we'll come back to it.
With medical debt. So in that process, they get more and more angry, and then when someone comes along and says, you're angry, and it's because the groceries are too expensive, right? But you know who's made the groceries too expensive?
What is he talking about? Communism or some shit? What the fuck?
Organizers called on the New Zealand government to impose sanctions on Israel. And many of television's biggest stars displayed signs of support for Palestinians on Sunday at the Emmy Awards ceremony. Several actors wore red Artists for Ceasefire pins, including White Lotus stars Amy Lou Wall and Natasha Rothwell, Ruth Negga of Presumed Innocent, and Chris Perfetti from Abbott Elementary. The Spanish actor Javier Bardem wore a keffiyeh and said on the red carpet he, quote, cannot work with someone who justifies or supports the genocide, unquote. Hannah Einbinder, who won an Emmy for her role, criticized ICE and called for a free Palestine during her acceptance speech.
I just want to say, finally, go Birds, ICE, and free Palestine.
Other Emmy winners included Stephen Colbert, whose late-night program was recently canceled by
What the fuck? Go Birds. Fuck ICE and free Palestine. Sorry for screaming into the mic. Holy shit.
for a free Palestine during her acceptance speech.
Who?
Supports the genocide, unquote. Hannah Einbinder, who won an Emmy for her role, criticized ICE and called for a free Palestine during her acceptance speech.
I just want to say, finally, go Birds, ICE, and free Palestine.
That's the Hack Star. Other Emmy winners included Stephen Colbert, whose late-night program was recently canceled by CBS. His show won for Best Talk Series for the first time. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I mean...
They're going to have... Well, they have a whole story on... the West Bank, I think? I definitely want to see this Chris Hedges thing. I listened to his report that he did. He wrote a piece on the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk, and looks like Democracy Now! Is doing a spotlight feature on it. It'd be nice to hear Chris Hedges talk about it in his own words. It was dictated by someone else.
This is Democracy Now! Democracy.
I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
It'll never not be wild to me to see an entire... There's still people saying, nah, fuck off in the chat at that time. Elindria. I want to see what they're saying now. Let's see. I sniped someone from back then. Okay. Has your position changed, Elindria? 64-month subscriber? I mean, I'm not calling you out. I hate to single you out like this, but I had to snipe you from the past. Huh? I totally wasn't referring to that, Lamau. I couldn't have been. I'm American. Okay, never mind. Oh, fuck off, bitch. Fuck you. Oh, they're talking to the person. Okay, my bad. I think they're just responding to this person, the journalist that was presenting.
Says it will take a zero tolerance.
I mean, it'll never not be wild to me to see an entire nation in a state of disarray and unrest with mass mobilization happening in public over one singular teenager being shot at a traffic stop. And of course, I'm not trying to belittle or minimize the violence that you are seeing, right? But I'm simply an American. So when I see a 17-year-old get shot at a traffic stop, I think, well, that's a Tuesday. Our police force kills 1,000 civilians a year. This is why you will never be at the level of Charlie Kirk. You know, I actually wear that as a badge of honor. Charlie Kirk was an administration hatchet man. He was a regime propagandist. He was beholden to whatever the Republican Party wanted him to do. He was a mere vessel of Republican propaganda. I mean, he obviously made the correct bet. After presenting himself as an anti-Trump voice, he turned around and demonstrated is antagonistic to many of the things that I'm talking about. My goal, the way I see,
let's drop the link to the video in the chat instead.
Process is to try to help people arrive at the conclusion that the danger is here. It's not even just like knocking on our door. It's inside of our houses. It's inside of our homes. It's inside of our fucking minds. You know? So with 50,000 veterans on the street, we should focus on immigration. My friend, if you think that these kinds of talking points are going to work here, you are the biggest idiot on the planet. Do you think, first of all, there's 600,000 people on the street, not just 50,000 veterans. I think they should all get houses. I have advocated for housing, a housing first policy. I've advocated to fix the housing markets. Have you? Have any of your Republican leaders done so? No, because they, just like you're doing here, whether you are aware of this or not doesn't fucking matter, only use veterans as a talking point to deflect away from another issue. This is at the heart of the problem. It's one deflection after the next. It's always a deflection. Gun control. Oh, what about mental health? We got to focus on mental health. Okay, let's focus on mental health. Oh, fuck you. We're not going to do that. And then you package this up and you turn around and you focus on some made up nonsense.
Alright, this chatbot's pissing me off. Alright, well, I'd imagine he'll have a few more stun locks with chatters on this topic before he notices anything. He uses a shit ton of points to highlight. Oh, I use a shit ton of points to highlight my message a bunch. I think other people saw it and will start saying it more. Right on.
Finite supply of any of these things. Okay? It's fucking bullshit. The appropriate thing to do in that situation, if we're going to talk about immigration without trying to deflect it away and be like, oh, like, okay, it's not a zero-sum game, right? If you want my honest perspective.
Okay, I got 2,000 channel points. you buy bits with points? That would be cool. Scroll down under the bits thing. Oh, okay. Ah, highlight my message. Let's get slow mode. Hold Alt key. Oh, that's nice. Oh shit. It's already gone. It's alright, I have another 1,000 I could spend. I just wanted to look at it at least. We'll definitely come back to that. I should have done that, because send a message in, it would have highlighted the whole text, right? Oh, sub only mode. Please subscribe to post a link. What the fuck? Get fucked. Alright, well. So when we looked it up on Google, it was like an hour ago. The oldest stories 8 hours ago? They are saying no foul play so fast, dude. They must have a policy of covering up hate crimes. Wow. That's so blatant. Unbelievable. I guess we can move on to this now, in the meantime.
Now.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's intensifying its campaign to seize Gaza City and forcibly displace its residents. An estimated 1 million people are believed to be sheltering there. Over the weekend, Israeli forces bombed more than 30 residential buildings as well as several schools and tent encampments.
I was sitting, preparing some food for the children. People came and said that we have to evacuate the school. We took our things and put them outside. Minutes later, they started to strike the school. We only could get what we were wearing. I'm sitting in a tent, nothing left for my children. I have no pillow, no blanket, nothing. Should I sleep in the streets with my children? Where should I go?
Targets struck on Sunday included the Islamic University and the Roya Tower, which housed media and UN offices. Israeli officials claim 250,000 Palestinians have left Gaza City in recent days, but residents of the city say there's no safe place to go.
My home, my safety, my life, my whole life has been spent in this house. It's the safety of my children. Now I can no longer feel safe for myself or my home. I don't know where to go. I'm standing here with nowhere to go. I have no place in the south, no place in Gaza. I have found nowhere. Where do we go? Someone please tell us where to go. There is no safe place. Everywhere they say is safe, but the bombing continues and death is everywhere.
Israel killed at least 53 Palestinians Sunday and another 25 so far today, including 6-year-old twins. Meanwhile, the number of Palestinians who've starved to death has reached 422. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Jerusalem to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The U.S. continues to stand by Israel, despite calling Israel's targeted military strike on Qatar, targeting Hamas negotiators last week. The U.S. has called it unhelpful. 5 lower-ranking members of Hamas died in the attack in Qatar's capital, Doha. A Qatari security staffer was also killed. We go now to Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, where we're joined by Dr.
Netanyahu does this shit so much, he looks bored.
Dr. Mohammed Sakr. He's director of nursing at Nasser Hospital. Thank you so much for joining us, doctor. If you can describe what's happening right near Nasser Medical Complex, if you can describe what's happening with the displacement of the population from Gaza City.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me on your channel. For the current situation now inside Nasser Medical Complex, the current situation really is very catastrophic. Now, for medical staff, as you know, very little amount of food are allowed to enter Gaza City. So most of the medical staff here work in a very bad condition. Most of them are really hungry and the amount of food is not enough. So all of this staff suffering from moderate or mild malnutrition. For, as you know, it has been a long time, for more than 20 months, working continuously. We are physically really tired and exhausted. And by the way, we can't tolerate any more burden on us. As you know, we are psychologically unstable because we see execution of civilians on a daily basis. Every day we receive in Nasser Medical Complex nearly 100 civilians murdered, whether by tanks or gunshots or snipers.
The only thing that has, after the main news, you should watch a video of Tupac talking absolute facts. Absolutely, I would. Dude, Tupac, I think was a modern prophet. The way he, in his own words, described communism, and to each according to their needs. Tupac was amazing. You're right. But one thing I'll say about the imagery here is that the only thing that has changed about the Nakba is the technology for which to travel during your Nakba. Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at that in a second, but I was playing Fallout earlier, and the post-apocalyptic wasteland, I mean, we've been looking at images of Gaza looking post-nuclear, since October 7th for 2 years. And you get kind of, in a weird way, used to the moonscape, used to seeing it. This is what they did. This is the destruction. This is the end of Gaza. Here it is. And it lives on through the people trying to stay there. And yeah, it's horrible. So when I was playing Fallout and seeing the post-apocalyptic wasteland, it's on an Appalachian backdrop. So it takes place in America. And it was triggering in a way that it wasn't before, you know? I don't know. Israel has dropped the equivalent of like multiple fat boys, fat men and little boys. Like Hiroshima and Nagasaki is almost pales in comparison to Gaza. And they did it with conventional munitions.
Civilians murdered, whether by tanks or gunshots or snipers. And for the medical staff themselves as well, we are unsafe and we are targeted sometimes even inside the hospital. Last month, the Israeli Air Forces attacked the hospital and killed 4 of our medical staff. One was a doctor and the other a nurse and 2 administrative staff inside the complex. So as I have just said, the situation we are working in is very catastrophic, and Israel doesn't respect the international law and regulations, especially when they target us and kill us even inside the hospital. Let me tell you about the seating capacity of Nasser Medical Complex. Nasser Medical Complex was designed to receive and deal with 350 patients only. Now the current patients inside the complex is 1,000 patients. So we have no beds.
Whoa. They're over 300% capacity in Nasser Hospital. And people are leaving Gaza City. And by the way, all the B-roll footage that you're seeing of buildings being blown up, they got plenty to draw from because Israel has destroyed like dozens in the past like week.
We have to put
exactly like
around,
that.
No supplies, no instruments, and the things will go worse when the Israeli evacuation orders the Gaza City to come here to Khan Yunis concentration camp. So it will be more and more tragic to deal with such high number of civilians and populations. Actually, let me say something important. The world must know. We are here deprived from everything, every human rights. For example, let me say that I don't have the right now to buy a shoes. You know, there are no shoes in the city, for example. So for me, let me say, for me, I have just 1 shoes sharing it with 5 sons, 5 of my sons. So if I have now, I have maybe $1,000, but I can't find just 1 single shoes in the whole city to wear. So I have, sometimes at night, I have to walk barefoot without shoes. Something is happening here, must stop. This genocide must stop. We are deprived.
Wait, they are starting to destroy empty buildings, or no? They've been destroying empty buildings. Like that one where they gave prior warning, and that and a bunch of people were living there, and they all left, and it was destroyed. It was like as demoralizing as the Al Baqa cafe bombing, because so many people lived there, and yet it was an empty building. It's the destruction of the hopes of finding any kind of shelter. It's sending the message of you have nowhere to go. If they are completely destroying things and not just killing them, it becomes a full-on Holocaust, definitionally. Yeah, it has certainly met the criteria of Holocaust. I think going all the way back to 1984, or 1948 rather, because there was an intent to draw out, or to drive out the Palestinians from Tantura all the way back to the Alexandroni brigades and the first Zionists to arrive, who even came from the death camps. That's when the Palestine Holocaust began. And quantifying it will be almost impossible.
From every single human rights. Sister, let me just explain another thing important here. no goes inside the hospital. Sometimes we stop the service of dressing because there is no medical goes to change dressing for patients. That led to spread of infection among many of our patients. Sometimes there are no thermometers, so we try to guess the temperature of patients by palpation and touching the skin of patients in order to guess the temperature of patients. At the time, we don't have CTG machines for fetuses to estimate and measure their heartbeats. Other times, no CBC kits in order to continue investigations, lab investigations. The things now inside Gaza Strip, and especially in Nasser medical complex, is really catastrophic and violate every single human rights. And this is really against international laws and regulations. Yeah.
Dr. Mohammed Sakhar, you are the director of nursing at the Nasser Medical Complex.
That's the first real stretcher I've seen in a long time.
The Al Jazeera is reporting the Palestinian Health Ministry says at least 3 people died in the last 24 hours from hunger, bringing the total number of people dead due to starvation to 425, including 125 children. And we also have the reports Israeli forces killed 5 people seeking food in southern Gaza. At least 5 Palestinians waiting for food were killed by gunfire south of Khan Yunis. What does it mean to treat people who are dying of starvation who have been bombed? I mean, the effect of malnutrition and hunger on the body.
Yeah, as you know, to explain it more for your audience to understand what is happening here, first let's start with the distribution points, food distribution points. The Israeli army threw the cartons of food on the ground and asking the people to come. When they take the cartons of food, they start shooting at them. That's why on a daily basis, we receive 100 or 200 wounded people, sometimes 300s and 400s from that distribution sites. When people come to our emergency department, we have 2 real bases. The first is the bullets which penetrated their bodies. The second is that the people are really physically deteriorated. They are physically unfit. They are very, very, very malnourished. So you just see people, skin on bones. These people were seeking for just food to feed themselves and their children. And when they attacked by missiles, tanks, missiles, or snipers, bullets, they come here to our emergency department. So we have to deal with two challenges. The first is the injury, and the second is the severe malnutrition they are suffering from. And by the way, maybe you don't have a comprehensive view of what is happening here in Gaza Strip. Now we have 3 main concentration camps: Khan Yunis concentration camp, and the middle concentration camp, and Gaza concentration camp. I'm from Khan Yunis concentration camp. This camp is nearly 25 kilometers square, 25 only. The number of population inside this camp is more than 1 million people, moving only in 25 kilometers. And there is red line. If you cross this line, you will be directly attacked by tanks and military aircrafts. So imagine 1 million or more than 1 million people in just 25 kilometers suffering from severe malnutrition, lack of healthcare system, rate of infection, a lot of things. So now on Nasser Medical Complex, really we are in a critical stage now, because we don't know how to focus on wounded, targeted people, malnourished populations, spread of infections. By the way, people here don't find anything to eat. If they find some very minimum amount of food in a very high cost. Really, these concentration camps kill people gradually, and we have made urgent appeal to the international community. Please stop this genocide as soon as possible. This is a fight not against Palestinians. This is a fight against humanity all over the world. This must end and stop soon. This is like a shame on humanity to make camps like this, focusing people and concentrating people in like this way, more than 1 million in 25 kilometers, and killing them inside these camps by tanks and aircraft, military aircrafts, killing them inside these camps by snipers, killing these people inside this camp by preventing them from food access. And
the resistance has been holding them, has pretty much completely destroyed the Gideon's Chariots operation in Rafah and Khan Yunis. So to have Netanyahu say that we're going to take Gaza 2 years in to the so-called conflict, it just illustrates how incompetent they are, and how only the most brutal cowardly options are taken by Israel. That message you sent was fucking crazy, Pillow Crafter. Also, Trump today is saying he would love to finally recognize Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. The fuck out of here. Isn't that a self-report that you're fascist? If you want to recognize an anti-fascist group as domestic terror? Oh, you want to know why that is? Because Antifa basically held down Chicago. They warded off ICE, I think, or the military. I don't know which, but I think it was ICE. Okay. I don't want to move on to Charlie Kirk yet.
It wasn't school indoctrination. Carrie Lake went off.
Yeah, no Charlie Kirk yet. ICE kills a man in Chicago? Here we go. It was a status quo video. Alright.
It's scary sometimes because, you know, as someone as close as us three are, it's really scary to know that there's someone out there who's directly targeting, like, immigrants. And, like, we all have each other's locations all the time, and we're looking out for each other constantly. So it's a little bit scary, but, like, seeing stuff like this out here, it's really beautiful and moving.
You want to see what real independent journalism funded by the people for the people looks like?
You ever heard a story like this in America?
You're looking at it.
Congratulations for always being somewhere where mainstream media is not.
Flint, Michigan.
See you in Nevada.
Thanks to people like you, we can get the truth. Corporate media, they've been lying to us for years, and you're going straight to the people.
You are the man. I'm glad you're here. For as low as 16 cents a day, you'll keep us on the ground, covering the important stories the corporate media covers up.
Let's start with the masks. Why do you guys feel like you need to wear those out here today?
I am Hispanic. Both of my parents are immigrants from Venezuela, Puerto Rico. So to me, it's very important that I can stay here to stay with my family. So just for identification features, ICE is targeting a lot of anyone who looks like they could be slightly ethnical.
Without identifying details, I really should ask about your family story, interacting with the immigration system. What's that been like?
I know it was very difficult for my dad. He came here when he was 18 years old. He was left, his parents left him, and he didn't know English, only spoke Spanish. All he had was literally the backpack on his back, the clothes on his back, the shoes on his feet, that's it. So I know it was very difficult for him to get here, for him to stay here. The process of trying to become a U.S. citizen is absolutely horrible. It's a treacherous process that most American-born citizens can't even get through. Like, it's just awful. But anyways, I know it was extremely hard for him, and so having that risk that he could possibly just one day disappear is absolutely terrifying. There's so much that he's worked for, and he's just worked so hard to get where he is now, and it's just really scary. Again, scary to see all of that.
Why did you feel I think that kind of gets to some of this next question, but why did you feel the need to be out here today?
Just to stand in solidarity with everything that's happening and to make a statement that everyone here doesn't want them here, no matter what, no matter if we're being affected by it or not.
Similar thing, like everyone who's here deserves to be here. They're here for a reason, and kicking them out for little to no reason is just wrong, incorrect.
We got to speak up for the people who can't speak for themselves.
That already gets to my next question, which is, I've heard that word solidarity from a lot of the folks that I've talked to here today. I feel that here in the crowd when you're among these thousands of people. But as just individuals, what do you see your own small individual roles in this to be?
I guess to speak out for my own community, just because I know that there are a lot of lost and silenced voices within my community, my family, everyone surrounded that I surround myself with, who I love and care for, who I don't obviously want to leave. So I think for me it's more of trying to be that signal for other people.
I like to get up in the faces of camera people, make sure that they're seeing what the signs say, just because I can't always speak for everybody, but if they're seeing what I'm trying to portray, then that's a win for me.
Similar to what EJ said,
that's what his sign says.
Even if it's not affecting me personally, I still want to make sure that everyone knows that it's affecting them and it's still a problem.
So I have to own up here. I'm not from Chicago. I'm down here from Wisconsin. I can't pretend to know what it's like to be in the city right now. So tell me, what's it feel like to be in the city right now as, the most powerful person in the world is bearing down and targeting this community?
I'm actually not from here either. Before I came back to Chicago, I was in Miami, so that was already starting to feel a little bit under pressure, and I was like, well, I know when I go back it's going to be hard. So for me, it's just difficult knowing that my safety and a lot of other people's safety are at risk. And we're just college students. We're here just trying to get an education, and they're here to take us away from our home. So that hurts.
It's scary sometimes because, as someone as close as us three are, it's really scary to know that there's someone out there who's directly targeting immigrants, and we all have each other's locations all the time, and we're looking out for each other constantly. So it's a little bit scary, but seeing stuff like this out here, it's really beautiful and moving.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what EJ said. It's really scary to just be here because we're all here just to go to college, to get an education, and it's terrifying knowing that anything could happen.
When we're talking about, you guys are using the word scary but empowering. The story that I'm looking to tell here is about the preparations that some of these organizers have done to lay the groundwork for potentially the long haul if National Guard troops were to come in. Do y'all feel like you have the energy, the stamina, the passion to go the distance here if we do see a sustained federal presence in Chicago?
Absolutely. This is our second protest we've been to. We were here when we walked the streets, and I feel like I'm willing to come out here as many times as I need to just make sure my message gets across, and I'm not afraid to do that.
Yeah, I could say the same. I'm not afraid of speaking out for myself and for the people I care about. So
these are the true free speech warriors. Charlie Kirk was a pussy who only wanted to debate college freshmen with canned responses and red herrings.
I will do that until it doesn't have to happen anymore.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just it's going to start affecting every single person at some point, and we have to take a stand now or nothing's going to happen. So everybody has to do as much as they can, because at some point no one's going to be able to do anything.
Anything else that you three would want to add before I turn the camera off?
It's stand up, fight back. Everyone's voice is important, and speak up even if your voice cracks.
Yep. Abolish ICE, get Trump out of office. That's all we need to do. Just please, I am begging you.
Agreed, just get Trump out of office.
You've referenced being in school, so I assume you're on the younger side. So, you've got your entire lives ahead of you. I don't know what you're going to school for right now, but do you see any work in, trying to, make this future that you're imagining real for yourselves?
I absolutely do. I'm a criminal justice major, so I am studying the ways of the law and how right now currently many laws are being broken federally, and that's unacceptable whatsoever. So
There are now pro-Palestinian defense attorneys, anti-fascist defense attorneys, immigration attorneys, all kinds of people who would be happy to represent you if you are being politically targeted for your speech in public, or if there's just a misunderstanding at a protest, you know? It's good to have a lawyer who, you know, is not just some local putz, you know?
I just want to make as big of an impact as I possibly can, starting now, because it's so important to just start as soon as you know, because that's the only way you're going to get something done.
That's right. The amount of stuff that I see on Status Coup that has less than 500k subs is like such a the revolution will not be televised moment, you know? They do real on the ground reporting, real good stuff. I like them. It's mostly apolitical, like it's I mean, they don't really preach. They just, I mean, there's the main guy who does, like, you know, progressive dialogue and stuff, and it's, yeah, it's a progressive outlet, I guess. Yeah. IDF admits 200k casualties as Israel builds concentration camps. Good Lord. What the hell is this? Kyle Kolinsky making a pro-Destiny video? Destiny. Humiliate streamer XQC in Charlie Kirk debate. This is why the debate lord world is just completely cooked, because Kyle kind of has his toe in that world, and it'll get you to the point where your YouTube editor has now put your smiling face next to a known pedophile. You don't need to cover this shit. So cooked. We're so cooked.
25 who were killed in Gaza over about the last week or so.
I learned about Mac because he covered for Kyle Kolinsky. Like, he did the show as like a stand-in for a couple, I think for like a week or so, and that really blew up his channel, although not enough as I would expect. Like, Kyle has almost 2 million subs. I guess 71k is okay, but he's so much better than Kyle. First of all, he's not like, he doesn't squawk and shit. He's just like a level-headed communist, you know. And he's got a cool Palestine flag. Hey.
But in the meantime, in the background, the death and the destruction and the carnage inside of Gaza has been rapidly escalating at a significant clip. So I want to bring you guys all of the latest on what has been happening over the last couple of days. So here from Drop Site News to start us off, they say the genocide in Gaza, at least 37 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks across Gaza just since dawn of today. This includes 25 who were killed.
And he also looks at a lot of the same sources that I do, so yeah, like I was about to look at Drop Site News, so
in Gaza City, obviously where Israel is significantly ramping up their operations there in order to try to pressure the entire population that remains there by the hundreds of thousands down to the south, where they can eventually be concentrated into camps that I'll show you some pictures of here in a minute, and expelled entirely from Gaza over time. So they say this is according to Al Jazeera, and among those killed was a Palestinian journalist, Mohammed al-Kuifi, who worked for the Safa news agency and Al-Aqsa TV channel as well. Obviously, Israel continuing with their repeated targeting of journalists. I think the official tally at this point is over 250 journalists that have been killed. They continue down here. They say 3 more deaths were recorded over the past 24 hours due to starvation and malnutrition, bringing the total since the start of the war to 425, including 145 children. They say the Israeli military bombed the high-rise Al-Ghafri tower in Gaza City on Monday. According to Al Jazeera, they say the attack comes after Israel targeted 4 high-rise towers in Gaza City on Sunday, including one of the Islamic University campuses. They say the strikes killed at least 48 people in Gaza City, including a family of 6 who had fled Beit Hanun, with hundreds more wounded. And Israel claimed, of course, without evidence, that the strikes had targeted Hamas surveillance posts. Hamas surveillance posts. Keep in mind, this is basically the same exact logic that Israel used when they did that double tap strike on Nasser Hospital.
Why even lie if you're so dog shit at it?
In Khan Yunis, where they 2 times in a row attacked journalists and then rescue workers who were at this hospital, and then later claimed the justification for that was that they were actually targeting a quote-unquote Hamas camera.
Yeah, like, just be evil. Just claim your shit. Don't be a coward.
A Hamas camera that actually turned out to be a camera that was used by Reuters news agency, but they said it was a Hamas camera, and so therefore that justifies us doing a double tap strike on journalists and rescue workers. And oh, it just so happens that the specific stairwell that they targeted in that strike was the place that journalists would congregate because it had the best access to Wi-Fi so that they could get their messages out to the rest of the world and to expose what Israel was doing on the ground. I guess that's just some sort of
Yeah, when they were interviewing the doctor, Democracy Now!, and his connection was like stuttering a little bit, I couldn't help but think about how the chilling effect of that strike, probably no one's going onto roofs anymore. For a better connection.
A wild coincidence, right? But this is the justification that they're going with in order to blow down, I mean, dozens and dozens of high-rise buildings inside of Gaza. We'll have more on that here because I have some videos of that, as well as a reminder on what Benjamin Netanyahu's justification for flattening Gaza City is. But one final thing here from Dropsite, they say that the Dutch newspaper, De Volkskrant, is reporting that at least 114 children in Gaza, according to this report investigation they just did, aged 15 or under, were treated for single gunshot wounds to the head or the chest by 15 international doctors and a nurse, indicating deliberate targeting. They say many were shot in Israeli-declared humanitarian zones, which do not exist and have never actually existed inside of Gaza, with forensic analysis showing that bullets consistent with snipers or armed drones. They say the report details amputations without anesthesia, maggot-infested wounds, and hospitals bombed mid-operation, with some medical staff smuggling evidence to the ICC despite personal risks. And obviously Benjamin Netanyahu is a wanted fugitive war criminal with that arrest warrant out from the International Criminal Court. But this is the kind of thing that we're talking about, guys, and this is just one.
And yet he has spoken in the halls of Congress to standing ovations.
Investigation that, you know, they were able to confirm with some of these doctors that were able to give testimony on this. But just from this one investigation, we're talking about 114 children under the age of 15 who had single sniper bullet wounds to the head and to the chest. They are going on a child murder spree inside of Gaza. Now we continue here because, again, we have some videos of the endless destruction of basically, it seems like, every even semi-remaining standing building inside of Gaza City. Now this is an interesting one because this was actually posted directly by Israel's Minister of Defense, Israel Katz. And he says the Islamic University in Gaza is going up in smoke, eliminating the sources of incitement and terror. And there you can see in the background the obliteration of this university building. Now, notice how brazen the Israeli government is, that they can, I mean, this is the kind of thing that you would have to previously, like during the Iraq and Afghanistan war, like you would have to get this leaked, right? Or somebody like Chelsea Manning or something would have to leak this out to the rest of the world to expose some of the crimes that were being committed, right? In this circumstance, you have the Minister of Defense, who is proudly bragging about blowing up civilian infrastructure. I mean, and his justification here is the Islamic University in Gaza going up in smoke. I guess his justification is that because it's an Islamic university, therefore it's a source of incitement and terror. I mean, they don't even try at this point to make it plausible that they are going after Hamas militants or that they're going after sources of terrorism or whatever. They are the terrorists. This is what terrorists do, is they blow up civilian infrastructure and then I guess brag about it on the timeline, knowing that they will never face any sort of accountability because they have the protection of their big brother, the United States of America. Now, we also have this video here put together by Al Jazeera using some sources from Eye on Palestine, showing, again, just the endless destruction. Much of this is spread throughout Gaza, but it seems like a significant portion of it is centered in Gaza City, where, again, Israel is ramping up their offensive there. You can see the bombing of the university, another angle of that there. I mean, again, this is from September 14th, just yesterday. I mean, massive, massive bombing campaigns that we're talking about, leveling buildings to the ground. I mean, completely destroying them. It almost looks like a controlled demolition with the way that some of these buildings are going down. Again, they point out there that they are claiming that these are all, like, apparently every building in Gaza City is a Hamas command and control center. They also say that Israeli quadcopter drones opened fire at Al-Shifa Hospital inside of Gaza. And you can see some of the video there of somebody who was on the ground at Al-Shifa taking video as these quadcopters were firing on them. I believe we have one more thing here that I wanted to show you guys. There was another vehicle that was struck near the hospital, sparking a massive fire. Of course, you can see some of the wounded here. And then finally, Israeli fighter jets bombed 3 UN schools in the Shati refugee camp. So this is just over the last couple of days. Flattening
international laws subject to American laws. Did we create this law to support criminals? Did we create it for them to kill children and commit genocide without capturing the war criminals? America has been the sole vote in vetoes for ceasefires at the UN Council. America has been standing in the way of peace in the world for generations. I don't know if we created the law. It's a precedent. And we didn't create it, but we are funding it. There is no separation from the genocide. It's on your phone, and your tax dollars are subsidizing it. You cannot give a fuck about the Palestinians at all, and you're still complicit. Because, I mean, the blood's on your hands because it's been spilled on it by your government. So the question is, what are you going to do about it?
Residential buildings to the ground, attacking multiple different UN schools that are obviously being used to shelter displaced Palestinians, attacking hospitals.
Oh yeah. They're the Nazis of our time. International law should be subject to any state, and it should be applied to all criminals like the Nazis in the past and the Israeli army currently. Exactly. I'm glad you're here. You're in the right place. And Zionism predates Nazism. The heads of the Zionist project were planning on how they were going to weaponize the legacy of the Holocaust while 10,000 were being burned in Auschwitz a day.
Hospitals with quadcopter drones.
And that's Ilan Pape. That's not me making that up.
aircraft, sniping children.
That's a direct quote from Milan Pape.
In the head and the chest, continued attacks in and around the aid sites inside of Gaza. I mean, and again, this is the justification that we get from the Israeli government for this, right? In relation to the flattening of every high-rise building in Gaza City, Netanyahu says we've taken down 50 terrorist high-rises, and this is only the beginning of the operation in Gaza City. And he tells the entirety of, again, the hundreds of thousands of people that remain in Gaza City to leave. He says 50 terrorist high-rises. Like, this is how stupid they think the world is. Or maybe this isn't even intended for a global audience. Maybe this is just for Israelis who will gobble this shit up, but...
What an unimaginative, like, euphemism. They were terrorist high-rises.
50 terrorist high-rises. Do you guys believe that Hamas is operating inside of the most clearly visible and vulnerable potential
Fuck no, they're all underground.
Targets inside of Gaza? They're operating in every high-rise building in Gaza. Does that make sense just at a surface level that you could justify bringing down dozens and dozens?
Or like, quick, all the video that we have of Hamas is of them popping out of tunnels. Quick, destroy every high-rise building.
Potentially hundreds by this point of those kinds of buildings. Now, again, we move on because what is this operation in Gaza City actually intended to do? Well, the intention is very clear. As Benjamin Netanyahu was just saying there, they want the entire population that remains in the north to be...
If there is any hope in international law, the soldiers responsible for the genocide must be arrested and held accountable. And also, no army should be allowed to be formed in Israel again. This is what we did with Germany after its Nazi rule. I'll do you one better because Israel isn't a real country, who has never fully declared its borders definitively, ever in its history, has constantly warred with its neighbors. The Netanyahu government is full of corruption. It's all built on stolen land. I think Israel should be dissolved and the land restored to historic Palestine, all of it, and anyone remaining in Israel can either assimilate or be incarcerated, because Lord knows they have the infrastructure for that. All power turned over to the Palestine government. International law holds us all accountable. It doesn't matter how much of a hunch you have or how much of a feeling you have like you should invade Afghanistan because of 9/11. Like, invade Iraq illegally and offensively when they did not attack you. International law keeps everyone safe. And I don't think we went far enough to denazify Germany. They started both world wars, and now they're backing this genocide. Like, how can never again be taken seriously if we don't also throw the Germans who are complicit in this genocide in The Hague? I'm a Saudi, so I know that Palestine has been occupied since 1948, but the world will only recognize the two-state solution. However, it will not say that the criminal must be expelled from Palestine. I think it'll take some serious reformation in the United States for them to completely abandon Israel. It would have to take America coming in boots on the ground to dismantle the government of Israel and facilitate a transfer of power to the Palestinian government. The United States would never do that. And if an Arab country were to do that, I think they would risk war with the United States, not just with Israel. Shit, they might even risk war with some of the other Arab countries that have the Western patsies installed. I know that a two-state solution is like the most popular thing, but it's nowhere near far enough. We don't recognize Israel as legitimate, or we shouldn't. I mean, you could say that other countries are built on stolen land and stuff, but that, like, is that who we are? Is that what we do? Is that what we allow people to do? Do we allow history to repeat itself? But even with a two-state solution, there will be no peace with Israel unless they prevent the formation of any army for Israel again. We have seen enough atrocities that will take decades to repair. You're absolutely right. Abolishing the IDF, I don't know. Palestine deserves to have their capital in Jerusalem. Or wherever they want it, you know? The first step is rebuilding Palestine International Airport, I think, after all the infrastructure is repaired. So Palestinians can have an equal footing on the world stage to travel and be free of this open-air prison.
Be pushed towards the south. And I've been saying for weeks now, because they haven't made it unclear as to what exactly their plan is, but I've been warning for weeks that the plan is to push the population to the south and then to concentrate them into what we call concentration camps, and then eventually, I guess, under the threat of starvation, under the threat of the barrel of a gun, they will then force the entire population, or as many as they can, out of Gaza entirely into surrounding countries or countries around the rest of the world. And here we have from Asal Rod some of the pictures of the construction of these concentration camps. I mean, you guys tell me. Look, the headline down here from the BBC is, quote, Netanyahu, we're not leaving. Defiance in Gaza City as Israel shows aid sites planned for evacuees. This is how they're framing the construction, the open, in broad daylight construction of concentration camps. They're saying that they are aid sites planned for evacuees. I don't know, you guys...
You know, they said that when in the civil rights movement in the United States, people would say that white people would never accept letting their children go to school with black children. And you know what happened? We made it happen with a military escort. They brought in the National Guard to escort black children to school. These people have suffered for a long time, and this will remain a stain on international law, but what matters to me is that we stop this rogue army that kills anyone and claims it's because of Hamas. They are disgusting, as if they rule the earth. And they want to go to war with the entire earth. Bombing Lebanon constantly, Iran, declaring a greater Israel while they're doing a genocide. Dude. Oh, it's a stain on humanity that the Samud flotilla is leading the world by example. Heroes, unarmed heroes, on their way to break the siege. It will take significant coordination for Israel to stop all of them, because they plan on making landfall all at once. That's why they're gathering all those ships. They're using the majority of their time gathering other ships in the Mediterranean. Do you think they're just going to start sending them one at a time? No. They're going to gather together in the full flotilla will make landfall. It's going to be a beautiful thing. And if Israel commits that type of piracy on that scale, they're going to need assistance from the United States Navy. Yes, the U.S. Navy has a continuous presence in the Mediterranean Sea through its U.S. Sixth Fleet, which is headquartered in Naples, Italy, and operates in the region to advance American interests. Okay, blah blah blah. Pretty far inland. Oh my god, it's at the knee of the boot of Italy, damn near. So they're in Tunis right now, so if the American military wants to intervene, they better get going.
Guys, tell me, am I crazy? Does this look like an aid site, or does this...
As a Saudi, I know what is happening, but what is happening is a religious and ideological war above all else. Israel kills according to their holy book, which states that they are the chosen people. They are delusional. Yeah, and they're so fucking... But of course it means genocide, destroying Amalek. Absolutely. Bringing about the end times. They had they're starting to do like the rituals and stuff. Like, there's like a cow that was brought in for sacrifice. I don't know what fucking sacrifice ritual they're gonna be doing, but they think that they're like bringing about the end of the world right now. When in reality, they're just like a psychotic country having a tantrum.
This look like a concentration camp? I mean, it doesn't seem like it takes much effort to figure out exactly what this is and what this is intended for. But this is the kind of journalism that we get both in the UK and the US and many other European countries as well, is that it's an aid site planned for evacuees. No, it's a concentration camp. And I mean, you have reporters who are there on the ground who are able to see this with their own eyes. And we still have that kind of reporting. Now, moving on here, we also have this reporting from The Guardian, 2 different reports from The Guardian that I'm going to show you guys.
I think if we don't return to international law, we're going to have an era of really slow diplomacy as countries only rely on their own checks and balances to conduct a diplomacy. Like, everything is going to move at a glacial pace, trade will slow, and I think America is just going to become more isolated.
Today, this first one, we have a quote here from the ex-IDF chief, this guy Herzi Halevi, who says, "We took the gloves off," and says that the casualties in Gaza are at this point over 200,000, and it seems like that's the bare minimum estimate that he's given.
No, it's over 700,000 at this point. Because there was a study that basically counted all the reporting after the Gaza Health Ministry was destroyed, and they came to about 680,000, but they stopped counting right before the Gaza Health humanitarian foundation was founded. So that's at least 20,000. Easily. Don't fuck with me. I can't watch a single video of children torn to pieces. How can entire people live like this with hunger, the greed of merchants, and no shelters? Even if they tried to fight Israel, they wouldn't have weapons because Israel doesn't allow them to enter. 80% of the buildings were destroyed. Yeah, it's a Holocaust. It is a modern Holocaust. Longer than the Jewish Holocaust. Because the Nakba never ended. The land is being stolen and systematically displaced. 80% of Israelis think that there are no innocents in Gaza. We just had 1,500 Palestinian men and boys kidnapped from the West Bank. Today, Taman is a modern concentration camp. What more evidence do we need that it's a modern Holocaust?
So, a little bit more on that. They say a former Israeli IDF war criminals have PTSD, right? But as a part of this reporting, you again just get open admissions like this. We entered the area and started spraying, firing hundreds of bullets. Then we charged forward, and then I realized that it was a mistake. There was no terrorist there. I saw 2 bodies of children, maybe 8 years old, maybe 10. The company commander arrived and said coldly, as if he wasn't human, quote, "They entered the extermination area. It's their fault. That's how it is in war." This is the company commander.
God damn.
After he witnessed them just murder 2 children. He says around the age of 8 or 10. And the response from the company commander was, they entered the extermination area. I mean, again, guys, look, I can bring you the videos, the images.
And by extermination area, they mean their line of sight.
Of the destruction, of the death, of the carnage. You know, I can bring you the evidence from international aid organizations, from the United Nations, whatever the case may be, to display how what Israel is doing is a genocide. But you really wouldn't even have to look past the statements from the IDF soldiers themselves. Because they say things like this. 2 children entered a quote-unquote extermination area. And so who cares? It's their fault. It's these children's fault that we just murdered them. This is the kind of way that the IDF is operating.
This is how backwards they are. The IDF. This is why Netanyahu is so bad at lying. Matter is not limited to Gaza. It happens all over Palestine and also in Israel prisons where all the atrocities against Palestinians occur. Rape, murder, torture, starvation. Everything Israel does is conveyed as if it only happens in Gaza. True. And then they call the Palestinians Gazans to not even acknowledge the state of Palestine.
I mean, we have more examples, you know, down here, another quote. Every day we have the same mission to secure the humanitarian aid in the northern Gaza Strip. The residents try to move forward and take a good place in line, but there is a line ahead of them and they do not notice. A line that if they cross, I can shoot them. It's like a game of cat and mouse. They try to come from a different way every time, and I'm there with a sniper rifle, and the officers are shouting at me like, take it down, take it down. I shoot 50 to 60 bullets every day. I stopped counting X's. I have no idea how many I killed. A lot. Children, he says. They continue, the officers don't care if children die, nor do they care what it does to my soul. As far as they're concerned, I'm just another tool. So again, this is from an article that's supposed to be portraying these soldiers in a sympathetic light, as they talk about how wounded their soul is from committing child murder on a daily basis. You know, obviously not that anybody should feel bad for these guys, right? They should be, if anything, tried at The Hague for their crime.
Like, if a country is the equivalent of a serial killer of children, what rights do we allow them? Do we even allow them a country? No. And this happened throughout the occupation since 1948. When will they be held accountable severely? That is, this mentality does not arise again. Zionism has to be crushed forever. Christian Zionists, like Christian Zionism and Jewish Zionism, needs to be crushed. Nazism wasn't crushed, and we still have it to this day.
Crimes, but again, notice how casually they admit these kinds of things, knowing that there will never be any sort of accountability for these guys. Now, another report here that I won't...
Like, fascism has been allowed to fester for so long that we now have different flavors of fascism.
I won't read in its entirety, obviously, but I highly...
You could be a white supremacist. You could be a Jewish supremacist.
I recommend you guys go and read this, because this is, you know, something I've talked about many times before on the channel in terms of how utterly deranged it is that, you know, we have Israeli soldiers who, you know, grew up and were born and who live in Israel, but then we also have Israeli soldiers who are from all over the world, right, who are from European countries or who are from here in the United States, and they are able to go and participate willingly in this genocide and then eventually, presumably, just come back to the United States as if nothing happened, as if they didn't just go on a murder spree to participate in this genocide. And so the headline here from The Guardian is the Gaza family torn apart by IDF snipers from Chicago and Munich. So let's go ahead and read a little bit of this here. It's centered on this guy, Daniel Robb, this IDF soldier from Chicago, shows no hesitation as he watches footage of 19-year-old Salem Dogmash crumpling to the ground beside his brother in a street in northern Gaza. He says, "That was my first elimination." The video, shot by a drone, lasts just a few seconds. The Palestinian teenager appears to be unarmed when he is shot in the head. So Robb, a former varsity basketball player from Chicago suburb who became an Israeli sniper, concedes that he knew that. He says he shot Salem simply because he tried to retrieve the body of his beloved older brother Muhammad, saying, quote, "It's hard for me to understand why he did that, and it also doesn't really interest me. I mean, what was so important about that corpse?" He goes on further in this article to essentially say,
and you wonder why Hamas is labeled as a terrorist organization? Simply because they are speaking the language of the Israelis, which is violence. I guess if you're gonna meet the Israelis where they're at, you're gonna also get labeled a terrorist. Like, Israel is the real terrorist organization. They're a terrorist state. I can't imagine the feeling of the father who dreamed of a child for a long time, and then when he finally has the child, he is bombed and dies for no reason without living his life to become a family. Yeah, there's a whole generation of children being erased.
You know, I don't think there are Palestinians who think that they won't get shot because they're wearing civilian clothes, and he says, I am not carrying a weapon and all of that, but they were wrong, right? He says that's what you have snipers for shooting at unarmed civilians wearing civilian clothing. So this is, again, the sort of, this interview was done under false pretenses, actually. It's kind of interesting. I believe it was led by Yunus Tarawi, a Palestinian journalist, who essentially got this guy, Daniel, to think that he was being interviewed, I guess, by like a more pro-Israel source who was doing a story on IDF soldiers, and he just casually admitted all of this. Right? And obviously, Yunus, I think, has a journalistic obligation to then release what he said, even though it was done sort of under false pretenses, because it's in the public interest to get this kind of a testimony out there. But, you know, again, these are people who you could be living next to, right? These could be your neighbors who you grew up with in Chicago, you played basketball with them on the varsity squad, and then he goes over to Israel, chooses to go over to Israel, and starts sniping a bunch of civilians proudly, doesn't give a shit about it. He says he can't even understand why this brother would go to retrieve his brother's corpse in the streets. He says it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's no interest to me. Right? He says, what's so important about that corpse? That we're talking about, alleged just serial killers here.
Yeah, we're talking about like you said, like an army without humanitarian principles. They are monsters that cannot even be described as animals, because even animals have feelings. At least when animals kill other animals, they're doing it for the purpose of food or preservation or something like that. Like, it's not, you don't see animals genociding each other. Yeah, they have feelings. Ain't right, buddy?
I don't even know how else you could...
This guy has a lot of feelings. He's an emotional boy.
Possibly accurately describe what we're reading here, right? You have an American who chose to go over to participate in this genocide. He becomes a serial killer, and then he's able to just casually talk about this, right? And eventually come back to the United States to live here as if nothing happened. Like, according to this testimony here, you are a serial killer. And we're just supposed to pretend as if this is normal. I mean, it's utterly and completely deranged. Now, a couple more updates here that I want to get to before I wrap up this video. So we have some, further or broader, I guess, Middle East updates in regards to Iran, in regards to Qatar, and also in regards to Turkey, with something alarming there. So first off here, if you guys remember, obviously Israel struck inside of Qatar a few days back, and there was reporting initially that they were going after some top Hamas officials who were located in Qatar, who were basically the negotiating team for this fake ceasefire deal that Trump and the Israelis put forward to Hamas. They used the cover of diplomacy to launch this kind of an attack, and it looks like the attack failed in terms of killing the targets that Israel was going after. They did kill several other people and wounded many more, but they launched this attack, and the initial reporting was that Trump didn't know about it, right? And Trump he's so mad behind the scenes that Israel would do this, right? Because obviously Trump has to sort of save face in this kind of situation. He simultaneously doesn't want to admit that Israel did something without his permission, right? Because then it looks like he's powerless. But he also doesn't want to admit that he knew about the strike, because then the Qataris are going to be pissed at him, right? This is the same, Qatari government that gifted him like a $400 million plane, that they have all of these deals that they've been working out back and forth. Like, we're supposed to be allies on paper, right, with the Qataris. So to greenlight Israel, one of our allies, to attack another one of our allies in broad daylight would be utterly deranged. And obviously the Qataris are pissed about that. But again, the initial reporting was Trump says, I didn't know about it. I didn't know that they were going to do this. It was solely Israel's decision. Now we get this.
Welcome
here
back,
from Rrorizes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to President Trump last Tuesday morning and informed him that Israel planned to attack Hamas leaders in Qatar.
Oh yeah, no forgiveness for Netanyahu or the IDF.
Before the strike took place, according to 3 Israeli officials. So we have a denial here from a U.S. official saying these anonymous Israeli sources are making false accusations, etc., etc. They should smarten up. But listen, guys, I mean, I don't know how it's even possible that Donald Trump did not know about this strike before it took place, right? We're talking about Qatar, a place that has one of, I think, if not the single largest U.S. military bases in the region. And you want me to believe that Israel, who basically gets permission from the U.S. to do anything, that they launched a strike inside of Qatar, obviously near a U.S. military base, and the U.S. had no idea that it was coming. This U.S. military base was not informed that there were Israeli fighter jets coming to launch an attack on Qatar. Again, a U.S. ally. Like, it's not plausible that that's the case, right? So there was your update on that. Seems confirmation of what we had suspected, that Donald Trump basically greenlit an attack by one of his allies on another one of his allies. Completely and totally deranged. And again, the context there is also important because they weren't going after Hamas militants. They were going after the Hamas negotiating team, as Israel's obviously trying to put the literal and metaphorical final nail in the coffin of the potential ceasefire negotiation.
It's like, it's part of a larger pattern of the Trump administration where they cannot, they seem to be incapable of effectively keeping up with their own corruption, to the point where there's lapses in communication. Sometimes the administration, when they're different members are giving reports to the media, they'll provide different stories. I never imagined there could be such a terrible army that lacks even the simplest ethic principles. There is no army in the world that targets children and women. All armies in the world target other armies. I mean, yeah, I think that's the easiest example and way to point the finger that Zionists are like the Nazis of our time. You know, taking all the men and boys from the West Bank. I don't see that. And frog walking them through the streets, hands on shoulders, one in front of the other. How is that any different than just marching people to the gas chambers? They're going to get thrown into Sede Teman, where they'll suffer a slower, more painful death.
Now, moving on here, we also have an update on Iran. So here we have new leaked transcripts of Israeli deliberations during the 12-day war on Iran that confirms that there was no imminent threat, pulling in Trump was central, and targeting Iranian civilians and infrastructure was and remains an Israeli objective. So here we go. Number one, there was no imminent threat. Remember, at the time, the justification for the strikes, both by Israel and by the United States, was that Iran was basically going to develop a nuclear weapon tomorrow, and we had no choice but to strike their nuclear facility, the Fordo plant, because they were on the verge of getting nuclear weapons. And so this was sort of preemptive self-defense, if you will. And this was, as a reminder, also done in the midst of sort of this fake diplomacy that the U.S. and Israel were putting on. So on that, from the leaked transcripts, they say that Netanyahu said at the meeting's outset, quote, "We are at a historic moment with a crucial decision. If we don't stop them," meaning Iran, "within a few years, they will get tens of thousands of kilograms of nuclear explosives." So first off, even this statement is not necessarily true, right? Is it possible that Iran could get their hands on some sort of a nuclear weapon if they wanted to in years' time? Yeah, that's of course possible. Whether or not they were going to do that, whether or not they were working towards that, or whether or not there was any sort of a green light to push in that direction is an entirely disputed claim, right? But he says even that, under that circumstance, like even if we accept that they were working towards it, he says within a few years, which completely contradicts everything that both the Israeli government said and the U.S. government said to justify these strikes. They said they were weeks, they were maybe months away. And of course, this is something that Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying for 20, 25 years or something like that Iran is on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon. If anything, these strikes made it more likely that they are now going to covertly actually try to pursue a nuclear weapon, because you just made the concept of an actual peaceful negotiation impossible at this point. Because how could they ever possibly trust the United States or Israel when you just use the cover of diplomacy in order to attack them? Now, second thing here, dragging the U.S. into the war was central to the plan. So the IDF chief of staff said everything can be done very fast. If the U.S. cooperates with us, we can make the hit in 48 hours. They say Fordo will be destroyed only if the U.S. attacks it. Netanyahu had pushed and maneuvered Trump to make a decision on sending refuel.
Fordo is the Iranian military base, is that right? It's a missile base, if I remember correctly.
Planes to assist in the Israeli strikes. And again, even further down here, they say Israel only refrained from mass targeting of civilians because they wanted the U.S. to take out Fordo before collapsing the country. So, reminder, at the time, me and many, many other people were warning that these strikes were just the first step in a possible regime change operation, that it was very clear that Israel was interested in engaging in. It was somewhat disputed that Donald Trump was willing to commit to a regime change operation, but here we have reporting that that was absolutely the plan, was to drag the United States into a full-blown regime change war in Iran. So Israel Katz, the defense minister, argued that relocating the population is practical and symbolic. He says we should strike civilian national infrastructure that destabilizes the leader. Just openly again calling for war crimes. Let's strike civilian infrastructure to destabilize the country, to destabilize the leader. He talks about population relocating as something that is practical and symbolic. He says there are military targets in Tehran amid the population. If Iran targets power stations, we won't have a dilemma. We'll attack civil infrastructure now, even though they are targets, and we want to keep them for later. You had Dermer over here disagreeing, saying if we attack civilian infrastructure now, it could end the war before we achieve our objectives and before an attack on Fordow. So there you have, again, confirmation that, number one, the Israeli government and the Trump administration completely lied about some sort of an imminent threat from Iran. You have confirmation that Israel thought that pulling in the United States into this operation was absolutely key to any possible success. And then finally, you have the Israeli government, behind the scenes at least, openly calling for strikes on civilian infrastructure and civilians in order to try to destabilize the Iranian government and bring about some sort of a regime change operation. So, in other words, we were right to suspect exactly what we warned about from the beginning. And the Trump administration and the Israeli government, once again, caught in a massive and a brazen lie that could have not only, destabilized Iran, but also destabilized the entire region. Now, further on this same front, in terms of the seemingly endless list of countries that Israel does bomb and is willing to bomb. I mean, keep in mind, we had Qatar, we've had Yemen, we've had Lebanon, we've had the West Bank, we've had Gaza, we've had Syria, we had Iran, and now we also have, apparently behind the scenes, Israel considering attacking Hamas's leadership in Turkey, saying that the only reason that they didn't do this is because Turkey is a NATO country. Right, would kind of make things a little bit awkward to have Israel, a non-NATO country, attack a NATO country, obviously potentially, relying on European countries and the United States, then back up Turkey against Israel. Right, Turkey could call in, an Article 5 sort of situation, being attacked by Israel. So, I mean, just incredible stuff, right?
So the limitations of Israel's conquest is just how pussy they are. Oh, that's a NATO country. Oh, okay.
And honestly, I genuinely...
But I thought we were on good terms with Qatar, What gives?
Believe that if Israel did directly attack Turkey, that it's more likely that the U.S. would completely pull out of NATO than the U.S. would have consequences for Israel. I genuinely believe that. We would completely obliterate whatever remains of NATO on behalf of Israel. So you had that angle of all of this. Final couple things here, because as the the death and the destruction continues in Gaza, we also have the continued ethnic cleansing, the torture, the humiliation, the attack.
This video is crazy, dude. Have you seen this? Is it pronounced Rrorizes?
Final couple things here, because as the the death and the destruction continues in Gaza, we also have the continued ethnic cleansing, the torture, the humiliation, the attacks, the terrorism inside of the West Bank as well. So here we have overnight, Israeli forces continued their mass abduction campaign in Tulkarm, in the north of the occupied West Bank, capturing anyone that they encountered during their assault on the city. In just a few hours, more than 1,500 people were taken hostage and herded into in a humiliating manner into a library that the army had seized and turned into a detention camp. They were not interrogated, as that was never the goal. Instead, they were subjected to abuse, insults, and humiliation, as some of them were later released, and presumably many others remain in Israeli detention. And you can see down here, I mean, something that literally looks like, it's out of, an old film from the Holocaust. Dozens and dozens of men, hundreds of them actually, being marched in a single file line by Israeli security forces to be taken off.
We will not remain safe as long as Israel has an army, and we will not enjoy peace in our Arab region. Yeah, the Zionist entity is truly a blight on the world. Like a blight in your garden,
And And this was done in basically a revenge sort of humiliation ritual after apparently there was some sort of an explosion that went off that injured a couple of IDF soldiers in the occupied West Bank. And so they get revenge on hundreds and hundreds of people by doing this sort of humiliation ritual. So there you have it, guys. I'll leave you guys off with that. In terms of your update for today, that was basically everything that's happened over the last couple of days.
You know, one of the saddest things that I heard from Tantura, the documentary, was like the Zionists who came from the death camps actually lived alongside the Palestinians at one point. They turned a living room into a dining hall, the Palestinians did. And they would eat with them. It was a prosperous, affluent fishing community in Tantura, and they were greeted peacefully. And then one day, they betrayed them. The Zionists turned on them, and now there is a parking lot over the mass grave that serves a museum that tells lies about the history of Tantura. It's like they killed the one who welcomed and received them. Yeah. Imagine the spiritual utopia that Palestine could have been. I mean, economically, they could be a powerhouse of tourism, trade. Agriculture. And Jerusalem would be the spiritual capital of the world, shared by all religions who wanted to visit. And Zionism took that away from all of us, not just the Palestinians, but from the world. It's Palestine's choice if they want to be open to the world at this point, for sure. But they are so hospitable. It's just how the Palestinians are. That, no doubt, it would still be open. Hamas is even open to a two-state solution still. The Palestinians were a kind people. They are a kind people. But then they could not accept any army or entity ruling over them. Yeah, of course. Everybody wants self-determination. Nobody wants to live in an open-aired prison. Nobody wants to get subjected to piracy for fishing in the sea, you know? Yeah, and the Israelis themselves said that they don't accept anyone ruling over them. Who's ruling over you? No one.
As I've been covering the Charlie Kirk story, obviously vitally important that we don't take our eyes off of Gaza, off of the West Bank, off of the entire region, even as many other things, important stories are floating around. But I'll keep you guys updated.
Yeah, I know this was a whole like way longer than 30-minute segment, but this is what reporting on Gaza is. This is what getting all the coverage is. I'm doing my best to distill it all down into something that's consumable. But I think to distill it any further into a more concise summary is to miss out on the larger picture. And that's what the mainstream media is committed to, is having the most packageable story possible, when reality is under no obligation to make sense or be friendly to your time or emotions. Like, this is the real shit. So now we're going to move on to Chris Hedges on Democracy Now!, talking about the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk.
Now, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We turn now to the fall.
Hang on. I mean, even the Israeli people and the detainees say that the Palestinians were welcoming and kind. Yes. But Netanyahu is killing the Israeli captives even. Yeah. There was, I gotta be careful about how I say this, but Hamas had entered an Israeli home and they were using it as a strategic location during an operation, and they didn't hurt anyone. And after they left, the Israeli media or documentarians were interviewing her, and she said that one of them asked, like, one of the Hamas operatives saw a bowl of bananas and said, "Can I have one?" And she said yes. And it's like, the hostages, there was one where an IDF hostage, after he was released, wanted to suppress a picture coming out because he tried to tell a story that he was being abused and stuff while he was a hostage. There was a picture that came out of him playing cards with his captors. It's like smoking a cigarette.
Fallout in the wake of the assassination of the conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The 22-year-old man accused of assassinating Kirk is scheduled to appear in court Tuesday. Tyler Robinson was detained Thursday night after he reportedly confessed.
Personally, what I learned from my family and also my country is not to deny someone's favor or attack them, even if they are our enemies, but Netanyahu doesn't know that. Not to deny someone's favor. That's a good ideal to have, because too often I feel like we spend a lot of time rejecting favors from people. And Netanyahu, fuck him, he has the Hannibal Directive. They don't even care about their soldiers, even if they aren't captured.
To his father, who then reached out to a youth pastor who called the U.S. Marshals. Robinson is reportedly not cooperating with investigators and is being held under special watch in the Salt Lake City jail. Charlie Kirk was fatally shot while speaking at a campus event at Utah Valley University Wednesday. Authorities are still trying to determine a motive in the killing. Tyler Robinson grew up in a deeply Republican family. Authorities say Robinson engraved messages into bullet casings with references to various online and video game memes. Utah's Republican Governor Spencer Cox claimed Robinson had leftist ideology but did not share any evidence. There's also been speculation Robinson may have been influenced by a far-right movement known as Groypers. Urges staff to identify any military members who mocked or condoned the killing of Kirk. For more, we're joined here in New York by Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, former foreign correspondent for the New York Times for over 2 decades, an award-winning author, a regular columnist for Sheer Post, where his most recent piece is headlined "The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk." His most recent book, A Genocide Foretold, reporting on survival and resistance in occupied Palestine. Chris, welcome back to Democracy Now! Explain your headline and what your concerns are. The martyrdom of Charlie Kirk, about the horrific murder of Kirk.
Well, you saw that his murder weaponized even before the suspect was apprehended. and the quote-unquote radical left being blamed. So in every conflict that I covered, martyrs were kind of the lifeblood of violent movements. You hold up the martyr, and any shirking from purging the society through violence of those individuals or groups who are blamed for killing the martyr is a betrayal of the martyr. And we saw that happen instantly. That's how Kirk's casket goes on Air Force Two. He's awarded the Presidential, Medal of Freedom. The flags are half. I mean, and that's only accelerated. He comes out of the Christian nationalist movement, which I wrote about a decade ago in my book, American Fascist, The Christian Right and the War in America. It's a movement I know very well. I'm also a seminary graduate. And I think we've reached a very frightening turning point. I think that we've already seen an assault on civil liberties, on institutions, the universities, the media that are tasked with maintaining an open society. That will now be accelerated. I don't take any of this rhetoric lightly. I look at it as three phases. First, we saw those who protested the genocide attacked as anti-Semites, although a significant percentage, 20-30%, were probably Jewish. That was a way to shut down free speech. Then we saw undocumented workers being targeted and demonized as criminals and all this kind of stuff as a way to build Trump's version of the brown shirts, this rogue paramilitary group, ICE, with all of these detention centers. I mean, the budget is now larger than all federal law enforcement agencies combined, ICE. These detention centers are not going to be exclusively for undocumented workers. And now we're seeing the radical left demonized to shut down individuals and organizations that dissent from the rapid consolidation of this police state or authoritarian state.
I want to go back to President Trump. This is the president speaking in Morristown, New Jersey on the tarmac Sunday before boarding Air Force One.
Well, the problem is on the left. If you look at the problem is on the left. It's not on the right, like some people like to say on the right. The problem we have is on the left. And when you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burnings all over the place, that's the left, that's not the right.
So that's President Trump before there was any evidence revealed. After Utah Governor Cox says we have to be very clear this is the work of one person. I mean, for example, when Timothy McVeigh blew up the Oklahoma City building and killed over 160 people, people didn't say they're going to go after white Christian men. But what about what what Stephen Miller is doing and saying they're going after leftist organizations, talking about flag burning?
Yeah. When was the last flag burning? I don't remember one. Well, it's all fictitious. They've already started going after these organizations, but this has given them a green light to lift all constraints.
A man burned an American flag, a veteran, burned an American flag in front of the White House and was arrested immediately.
And we've seen, a bill was the Florida, what was his name, Best or Most, I don't remember this, in the House, where groups that supposedly provide material support to terrorism can have their citizenship revoked. Remember Tom Cotton, right after 9/11, wanted to prosecute or go after mainstream media organizations, AP, CNN, the New York Times, for using graphic pictures from October 7th and from the genocide. So the process has already begun. Universities such as Columbia have already capitulated, and CBS is about to be turned over to a rabid Zionist and Bari Weiss, if everything goes through. We've already seen that assault, but now in the name of the martyr, Charlie Kirk, I think that they will carry out activities that will essentially in the end, and look to Miller, because Stephen Miller's the one who's kind of organizing all of this, just as he has with the assault on undocumented workers and on immigrants. They will begin to shut down organizations. I'm sure they're not.
You want to get a look at a modern Nazi? I present to you Stephen Miller.
Very happy with democracy now. They essentially intend to create a closed society, a police state, an authoritarian state under the rubric or with the kind of ideology of what I call Christian fascism. I mean, I label these Christian nationalists as heretics.
Palantir co-founder Joe Lonsdale capitalized on Kirk's death to advocate for a takedown of the Red-Green Alliance of communists and Islamists who he claims have united to destroy Western civilization. He proposes an app where citizens can upload pictures of crime and homelessness in exchange for property tax rebates.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the kind of lunacy, it's the old, the Vatican and the Masons and the communists, where these subterranean dark groups all come together. The kind of idea that there's a left, far left, radical left alliance with Islam is insane. It's absurd. But we've left the rational universe for one of magical thinking.
You quote in your piece Elon Musk, who wrote on X, "If they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is to fight or die."
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things. All of this came out on my Substack, chrishedges.substack.com. So I found the quotes, again, remember, this was before the suspect had been apprehended. There was almost a giddiness to it. I'm certainly certain that there were people who were upset about his death, but Bannon and others, there was almost an excitement about launching, the war's already been launched, but really prosecuting this war on what's left of our anemic institutions tasked with defending an open society.
You wrote in your piece, "Kirk's killing is a harbinger of full-scale social disintegration. His murders given the movement he represented, grounded in Christian nationalism, a martyr. Martyrs are the lifeblood of violent movements. Any flinching over the use of violence, any talk of compassion or understanding, any effort to mediate or discuss is a betrayal of the martyr and the cause the martyr died defending."
Yeah, and from the moment he was killed, that was essentially the role that he was given in terms of perpetuating this assault. Yeah.
Can you talk about what happened over the weekend at a vigil for Charlie Kirk in Huntington Beach, California, when the chant broke out, "White man, fight back," the intersection of white supremacy and Christian nationalism that Charlie Kirk represented? Again, we talk about this as he was horrifically assassinated this past week.
Yeah, well, that hyper-masculinity is key to the movement. And there's a great work by, I think, Thessalway called Male Fantasies, where he talks about the importance of hyper-masculinity to fascist movements. And Charlie Kirk, he very much pushed this. He pushed Trump, for instance. He was one of the principal agents of the Trump cult, fostering the Trump cult. And that hyper-masculinity is very much part of the Christian right. When I did my book, you would actually...
And Rrorizes, it's not about being an interventionist. When I say a threat to one is a threat to all. Anyway.
Actually see pictures of kind of a very muscular Jesus. They embrace the jihad or the crusade against Muslims. These were during the wars in Iraq, writing Bible verses on guns and this kind of stuff. But that hyper-masculinity is key, and it appeals to disenfranchised white males. I mean, most of the country at this point, especially young people, are disenfranchised, but it plays very well to white males.
Before we go, you sat here watching Dr. Sakhr, who is the head of nursing in Gaza at Nasser Hospital, extremely gaunt. Our radio audience couldn't see that. And you talked with me at the break about you having been a reporter in Salvador for the New York Times and who you met there.
Not the Times, but I wasn't with the New York Times in Salvador, but I was there for 5 years, and I shared my apartment with one of the founders of Medecins du Monde, Alina Margolis. She was in the Warsaw Ghetto. She was married to Mark Edelman, who was the deputy commander of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And every story she told me about the Warsaw Ghetto fits at this point with Gaza, including the forced starvation and baiting people in the ghetto to get on the transports by giving them 2 kilos of bread and marmalade, which is exactly, they're using food, paltry amounts of food, as a bait to lure starving Palestinians to the south of Gaza and putting them into these concentration camps.
Chris Hedges, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, award-winning author and activist, a regular columnist for ScheerPost. His most recent piece is headlined "The Martyrdom of Charlie Kirk." His most recent book, A Genocide Foretold, reporting on survival and resistance in occupied Palestine.
Yes, and this is what we learn from the existence of a fascist criminal army that does not regard humanity at all. Yep. And this is what we learn from James Baldwin. That the man on the street is also you. I'm an atheist, but I think one of the most powerful things to ever be written is to love your neighbor as your brother.
There may not be, as much humanity in the world as one would like to see, but there is some. There's more than one would think. In any case, if you break faith with what you know, that's a betrayal of many, 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 many people. I may know 6 people, but that's enough. Love has never been a popular movement, and no one's ever wanted really to be free. The world is held together, really it is held together, by the love and the passion of very few people. Otherwise, of course, you can despair. Walk down the street of any city, any afternoon, and look around you. What you got to remember is what you're looking at is also you. Everyone you're looking at is also you. You could be that person. You could be that monster. You could be that cop. And you're to decide in yourself not to be.
God, every time I watch that, it's like the first time I've ever seen it. Yeah, I can't believe how anyone's supporting Israel at this point. They just want Palestine for themselves. Do they think their silence will make them safe? War will reach them. You're absolutely right. You think Israel won't betray them? The fact that the United States thinks that Israel won't betray them is crazy work. Look no further than the USS Liberty.
Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility.
It's a news outlet, an independent media.
It's possibility, possibility, possibility.
All right, so Tim Dillon did an interview with Max Blumenthal, who is the founder of The Gray Zone, which is a news outlet, an independent media outlet of somewhat dubious credibility, but we'll get to that in a second. And they talked about this reporting that Blumenthal did about Charlie Kirk. Apparently, in the sort of lead up to his death, he had become more critical of Israel, started to change his tune on certain pro-Israel narratives, and this was after a long...
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw that article. I think two things can be true at once. I think you can... Who hasn't attracted either the ire or attention positively of Israel at this point? If you're anybody, you know?
Time of essentially being backed by Israel with his organization Turning Point USA. So I do want to say that Gray Zone has always sketched me out a little bit as an organization. I remember going back to the days of like the Russiagate stuff and many things that have happened in between. There's always an angle that Gray Zone takes that is sort of anti-American establishment for the sake of it, and there's definitely accusations that they have taken money from Iran and Russia, and there were even some payments that were revealed to the editor of the Gray Zone from Iran. Max Blumenthal, the person who appears in this clip, has been to Russia. He's appeared on Russia Today. So there's connections there, and don't have any confusion about that. And it seems like any type of actual journalism, independent journalism, corporate journalism, whatever it may be, it has to have this type of backing, because journalism is something that requires a lot of resources to do properly. So I don't think that that completely ruins their credibility journalistically, because I think journalism is one of those things where if you do it properly, the truth of it will outlive whatever the circumstances of whoever funded it or whatever. But at the same time, it does affect the angle, and Gray Zone Glenn Greenwald, these are examples of outlets that have always had that vibe to me of, wanting to turn America's internal issues or issues that are important to America into some kind of international framework that seems to have a little bit of a slant to it. So I can flesh that out a little bit more later, but let me get to this clip here. I just wanted to say that I'm not going to be fully uncritical of this. I am critical of the Gray Zone as an outlet. I'm certainly critical of Tim Dillon, and he's the type of dupe that will uncritically platform somebody who has like a huge machine of an agenda behind them without realizing it. So that's an important dynamic to keep in mind here. But at the same time, there seems to be more to this angle than I thought there was. So we'll get into that. And then I'll also get into this stuff about this supposed trans roommate that the shooter had and the information that we know about that so far. Although I suspect by the time people hear this, we'll have learned more about that. So I'm not going to get into that as much in this episode. But here's Tim Dillon with Max Blumenthal.
So this is one of the most fascinating stories I've witnessed in American politics. It could be the theme of a film or a documentary or a book. Charlie Kirk began coming under pressure from his own base. I would say, I actually forgot which year it was, but it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was called the Groyper Wars. And Charlie Kirk would do these TPUSA tours around the country, and young men would file in, and they would, you get to question Charlie Kirk and debate him. And they hit him from an angle he never expected. They were from this organization called the Groypers, which sort of follows Nick Fuentes. They're anti-Israel. They're kind of anti-Jewish. Some people call them white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. They're very anti-Israel, and they believe they're the true voice of America first because the U.S. government has fallen under the control of this malign foreign power in Israel. And so they would confront Charlie Kirk with the history of, for example, the USS Liberty, the U.S. naval ship that was deliberately struck by the Israeli military in the 1967 war in order to cripple that boat because it was a surveillance boat. It was listening to Israeli communications. And they killed scores of sailors. And they would confront Charlie Kirk with the difference between Israeli interests and American interests while holding up a cross. And Charlie Kirk would just shut down the conversation because he knew that if he would give an inch to them, it would threaten the relationship with his donors and TPUSA would collapse. Now, after October 7th, the pressure was just too extreme. The whole grassroots of the conservative movement, everyone under 35, started to question the U.S.-Israel relationship because they wanted to be America first. And they saw Netanyahu just leading Trump around by the balls. They saw Miriam Adelson, this Israeli intelligence asset billionaire, just calling shots inside the White House. And a lot of them are pro-life and were horrified by the slaughter of babies that they saw in Gaza. So the bottom dropped out of right-wing youth support for Israel to the point where now only about 25% of Republicans under 35 support Israel over Palestine. So Charlie Kirk has to answer to his own grassroots base. And you can hear he's starting to make some noises. He's talking about October 7th possibly being an inside job. Israel let it happen in order to carry out long-term political goals. He starts to question whether Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli Mossad agent at a time when the Epstein files were becoming an uncomfortable issue for Trump. And it all blew out into the open at TPUSA's July Youth Summit in, I believe it was Tampa, Florida. Yeah. Might have been Tallahassee.
Yeah, Tucker gave the speech.
Right.
Right.
So Tucker gave a speech. I mean, that was the seminal moment. But it wasn't just Tucker. Megyn Kelly had started questioning Israel, and she's on stage calling Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad agent with Charlie. Comic Dave Smith, who, like myself, is a Jewish anti-Zionist, but he more comes from kind of the libertarian world. So he was welcomed on stage to debate a Zionist propagandist who works for Newsweek, Joshua Hammer. No, that's not something you want, especially at this point, if you are like a pro-Israel enforcer. And after that, he started getting publicly attacked. Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, the two biggest Zionist enforcers in the media, who are very close to Netanyahu, biggest forces lobbying Trump to wage war on Iran, went off on TPUSA, said we can't be having a Big Ten if it includes kooks. Laura Loomer, we all know who she is. She publicly attacked Charlie Kirk and said he basically had to step down. He was getting attacked in pro-Israel media. What we didn't know, which I learned, is in private, the pressure was even more intense. He was being bombarded with text messages. And at some point, Netanyahu personally called him and offered to basically fund his organization to new levels that he never even imagined, which meant, Zionist Israeli takeover, complete recapture of TPUSA, an organization they basically helped create. And Charlie Kirk turned him down. After Charlie Kirk was killed, we know that Netanyahu wouldn't stop posting about him. Like minutes after he was killed, when his body was still warm, Netanyahu was posting about him, interrupting his 7-front war in the Middle East and his global assassination spree, where he's trying to kill people even inside a U.S. ally in Qatar. I mean, I've been told, yes, that Israel is a major source of concern for Trump. I mean, think about it. what would happen
this
if
is
the
our
president
ally.
just if he suspended
I'm
arms
confused.
to if he suspended arms to a country that carries out assassinations all across the globe, that specializes in assassinations, that has an entire wing of its intelligence services that conducts assassinations, including with household goods like pagers, would you not be scared? So yes, Trump is scared. And what I learned from this source, who is a Trump insider, someone who talks to who talks to people in the Oval Office, people close to Trump, is that during one of Netanyahu's many visits to the U.S. this year,
maybe Trump thought that because Epstein got whacked, he'd be safe. But in reality, because it was most likely Israel, Trump's exactly the type of person that Israel would want to whack.
Some figures in his retinue, Israeli agents, placed electronic devices on emergency response Secret Service vehicles. The Secret Service found them and they were...
That is, if Trump steps out of line. If he even goes near that phone to make the phone call to stop the genocide.
Reported this to the White House. These would be emergency response vehicles that would respond to an incident potentially involving the president. All right, some people watching this might be dismissing me as crazy right now, and I wasn't able to confirm this. I can't just call up the Secret Service and have them tell me that. But in 2019, 3 former high-ranking U.S. officials from the Trump administration told Politico that listening devices were found around the White House and at sensitive locations across Washington targeting President Trump. They wanted to listen to his calls and communications, and they were planted by Israel.
All right, so some interesting stuff there, as well as some red flags. First of all, when he mentions the Groypers, and he actually gives an interesting recounting of what the so-called Groyper Wars were and how that was related to Charlie Kirk and what the split was between the followers of Nick Fuentes and the followers of Charlie Kirk. But to reference the Groypers and then just say, like, well, some people call them white nationalists, so they're kind of anti-Jewish, to mention the Groypers and not make it very clear that these people are essentially neo-Nazis is extremely suspect and very irresponsible. And the other thing he says about Dave Smith debating what he calls the biggest Zionist propagandist in America at Newsweek or whatever he said, but then he says, oh, but Zionist enforcers in the media, you wouldn't want debate. You look at debate and you said, no, we can't have that. But if the guy you're talking about is a Zionist propagandist, why would he be doing a debate? So my issue is not that it's not accurate to say that that guy's a Zionist propagandist. It's not accurate to say that there are so-called Zionist enforcers in the media. It's just...
Ooh, yeah, his interview with, or his episode with Max Blumenthal really popped off. I mean, look at this, 600K in 4 weeks, 400K in 2 weeks, 560K in 8 days, 1.2 million in 2 days. Jeez. The criminal will commit this crime against everyone. You're right. That's what it means to have a rogue nation that you allow to persist.
Very politicized language, and that type of language is exactly what has always sort of raised my hackles about people like the Gray Zone, Blumenthal, Greenwald. Even Jimmy Dore gave me that sense when I used to listen to him talking about the media, and like during Russiagate and stuff, when he was railing against the media for Russiagate, and then later he was doing it on COVID. And a lot of these outlets like the Gray Zone were taking the same tone on that, where they're just critiquing the establishment narrative for the sake of it. And it's usually when you're using language like that, like Zionist enforcer and things like that, it creates, when you give it a title, it creates a different image in your mind than just saying that somebody even like is a tool of Israel or is pro-Zionist. A pro-Zionist propagandist is a lot different than saying a Zionist enforcer. So I just wonder what the difference is between those two things and why he didn't clarify that. And that highly politicized language makes me skeptical, even though I'm inclined to agree with the sort of what he's proposing there. But that's the kind of thing that makes me a little sus about this guy. And it makes what he's saying sound a little bit more like some kind of international agenda than like just honest, somebody just calling calling it how they see it. I don't get that vibe from Blumenthal. It seems like he, just as much as anybody else, kind of has an angle that he knows he has to push, and it seems like even the quality reporting that is done at the Gray Zone or whatever, it usually has that type of angle. And that being said, I think what he's talking about with Kirk is interesting here, as well as, I mean, it's objectively weird that after Kirk was killed, Netanyahu immediately came out and said, we did not do this. As far as I know, he wasn't really being accused of doing it. I'm sure in some circles he was. Obviously, in some places on the internet, people were saying that. But it was weird that he came.
I don't think it's that weird. I think that Netanyahu was using it as an opportunity to play victim. It's like, they're saying we did this. Oh my goodness. Goodness gracious. When we talk about the criminal, we're not only defending the victim, we're also protecting ourselves from him so that he's not allowed to repeat his actions. Yeah.
Came out and preempted that. And then there's also a very interesting dynamic between Kirk and Ben Shapiro, because he's correct that Kirk started to criticize Israel in some ways, even saying things like, Israel might have had some awareness about October 7th and allowed it to happen in order to accomplish long-term political goals. I think that's pretty much the understanding that I have at this point. And Ben Shapiro came out and was definitely criticizing him over that. And the fact that Ben Shapiro is now the one that wants to take up the mantle after Kirk has died, I mean, that's telling, right? Ben Shapiro wasted no time coming out and saying we're going to pick up where he left off. At first, people were saying Ben Shapiro is going to take over for Turning Point USA. That's not true. Looks like Charlie Kirk's wife is going to be running Turning Point USA. So before I move on from this, the last things I'll say is that he mentions the sources that he has, people that were close friends of Charlie Kirk.
Of course she would. Like, Ben Shapiro is on his way out. He's never been more unpopular.
And then also in reference to talking about conversations and fears that Trump had, and like intimate knowledge of what's going on inside the White House, about how he has sources there. So I think who he's talking about here is probably J.D. Vance or Tulsi Gabbard, or both. J.D. Vance is likely to have been a longtime friend of Charlie Kirk, or at least to know him. And Tulsi Gabbard, when it comes to intelligence stuff, is probably the one who would be willing to talk to a guy like Blumenthal and to have a pre-existing relationship with him. So I think it's likely that those are the sources that he's talking about. And it's possible that whatever friend of Charlie's he's talking about is not somebody in the White House, but it seemed like he was saying that there's a commonality there. And some of the conversations in the article that are recounted between Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump, these are happening at high levels. It seems like probably the only person that would be in the room for that would be somebody like J.D. Vance. So that's probably his source here. Obviously somebody who has an agenda of their own, but potentially somebody who's seeing these connections and these pressures that are being put on people by Israel and wants to put it out there in some way, as well as feeling like maybe leaking to the Gray Zone is a better way to stay under the president's radar. Whereas if you say certain things to certain outlets that Trump's going to see, then he'll probably know who it was or figure it out. So that's who I think is behind the story here. And the thing that's interesting about this, if let's say it's true that there's some kind of Israeli intelligence angle to Charlie Kirk's death, that contradicts the Groyper narrative.
It does contradict the Groyper narrative. It wouldn't be surprising, but two things can be true at once, but not this. It could be true that Israel wanted him dead and that a Groyper just got him first. Because he's just that hated. That much of a piece of shit. And stepping on the wrong toes. Like Israel.
Which right now, it seems pretty clear that this kid was some kind of Groyper or in online channels like that. He's not cooperating with law enforcement right now, is what they're saying. And apparently the people around him are, including this person who is supposedly a roommate. So again, we'll get back to that. But the whole angle of him being a Groyper is that he's a follower of Nick Fuentes who hated Charlie Kirk for that reason. So if that's true, then that means that the reason that person killed Charlie Kirk is because Charlie Kirk was too pro-Israel. So if Charlie Kirk was making a turn on that, that would mean that he's making a turn in the direction that the so-called Groypers would have wanted him to be turning, and that is what would have pissed off Israel to make them kill him. So I don't think that's true, because even as noted in the article, there's no substantive proof or anything that would indicate that Israel had to do with the murder. But the idea that there's something going on behind the scenes in terms of pressure campaigns that may
Well, except the fact that Charlie Kirk justified genocide and supported Trump's decision with extremism, Charlie Kirk was one of the only people who advised Trump not to attack Iran, or not allow Israel to attack Iran, because he thought that would just inflame things. And that was a big contentious moment between Trump and Kirk, because Trump's like, but I have to do everything that Israel says.
Have led up to what we saw in some way. Does seem like there's some substance there, but again, it could just be that Max Blumenthal is using this moment in history to sort of shoehorn that narrative in there, because there's an opportunity to do so, and he for some reason has some obligation or incentive to do it. So that leads me back to what is going on with the current shooter that we know. So he's not cooperating. This story about the trans roommate. So as far as I can tell, there's one Fox News employee who originally tweeted out that it is confirmed that he had a trans lover or roommate of some kind. That story then got posted in the New York Post, and then after that got posted in Fox News. So it's interesting that Fox News didn't report on it first, given that their employee was the one who originally said it. That employee said this information was based on quote-unquote sources. New York Post said the same thing. They said sources. When it got published in Fox News, what Fox News said was high-level FBI sources. And after that story got published to Fox News, none other than Kash Patel reposted it. So it seems like Kash Patel was probably the source or was aware of that. Fox News is one of the outlets that there's going to be open communication between the administration, and they're going to use an outlet like Fox News to purposely put.
Well, that might be true, but he has strongly supported the Israeli narrative and has never opposed it, to my knowledge. He kind of started to change his tune. He started to be more outspoken against Israel, said that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent.
Put something out.
But you're right, he didn't he used to be like that. He used to support Israel.
I think what happened here, without knowing what's going on with this roommate or who that is, I'm very skeptical of that narrative. Very skeptical that they're trans or that they're actually lovers. But I think we'll probably find out about that later today. I think that probably because it was the weekend, there wasn't any official updates or announcement. The Utah governor has been the only one out saying anything about this, and I think that's on purpose. I think he recognizes that there's an abdication of responsibility happening here. Like I said, he was the one who told us that there are bots from like foreign entities that are trying to stoke disunion in America, where it seemed like that was something that the FBI director should say. So what I think is that over the weekend, they, have not issued any official reports, and they probably will at some point on Monday. They're going to give us something, I would assume. But I think they purposely left the weekend open. They left a vacuum of information that now has been filled by, reporters trying to spread this trans story. So that has caught on with the right wing. They're running with it all the way to the hills. And they're saying anything from, okay, the shooter is confirmed trans, the shooter is confirmed Antifa, he had a trans lover. None of that is confirmed yet. We have one story in Fox News that other reporters are now basing their own stories off of. I haven't seen any confirmation, and from what I can tell, the only thing publicly that we can see that indicates that this person who was supposedly a roommate of the shooter was trans is some picture of him with a filter on. That there's no other indication that this was a person who was transitioning, and they have profiles that are publicly available, as well as the Utah governor. When saying that this person was trans, he originally referenced the pronoun they. He said referred to them as they, and then he corrected to he, even though this was supposedly a male to female trans person. And, so maybe he was just being transphobic on purpose, but it seems to me, even though I think he's a Republican, it seems to me that he has an interest in being accurate in this case. It seems like that's what he's trying to do, is be accurate and call balls and strikes. So I don't know why he would land on the pronoun he if that wasn't accurate. So it seems like there's something fishy going on with that roommate, and they're trying to use that in the absence of being able to tell us what's actually going on with this person in order to paint a narrative. And that could also mean that the information they do currently have about the shooter does not align, that's not the information they want to put out there. And so instead, they're giving us this stuff about the roommate, which the right wing has run with. Maybe they don't have any more information about the shooter because they're currently looking through his stuff, but he's not cooperating, so there's nothing for them to give us. But to me, it seems more likely that what they're learning is not aligned with this, trans Antifa narrative, and so they have to give us something that seems more aligned with that in the meantime. I'll have more updates for you guys soon. The last thing I'll say while I don't know if I believe this Israel narrative, there seems to be something to it, more so than I thought, in terms of Charlie Kirk, you know, going against Israel. Netanyahu offered him money and he turned it down, and then this happened shortly after that. That's kind of crazy, as well as what Blumenthal says about Trump, you know, fearing that the Israelis are spying on him. There's some substance to that as well. That's not outlandish, what he's talking about. So, you know, the only thing I can think of here is that I would much rather people on the right be focused on this narrative that this was Israel that did this than trans people and Antifa. You know, obviously I don't want Jewish people to be targeted by the right. I don't want Jewish people to be targeted by anybody, and that is a risk. But I do feel like with the way Trump immediately diverted attention to the left, it does seem like he's trying to divert attention away from somewhere else that it could go. And if this, you know, Israel angle to Charlie Kirk's death picks up steam, it could diffuse some of this bloodthirsty rage that the right is now experiencing towards the left. And if we can get more of them talking about the Israel thing, because there is some substance to it, that could hopefully throw some water on this narrative of going after the left and going after trans people.
Swastika, please don't get mad at me. And he posted that fucking AI swastika image of the white family, the hidden swastika image, to just basically cool off the fucking groypers in the audience, to be like, dog, I'm about to post a swastika. I'm just letting you know, okay? Straight up. And it's like that. Come on, bro. Just one swazi, please. Let me hit the swasti one time, bro. These guys will not stop fucking coming after me, dude. Chad thinks that if you got to your debate with Charlie Kirk, you'd be in agreement. Yeah. Unironically, he would have shifted his position by that point. It would have been the major reveal. He would have come out and been like, Hassan, we don't agree on much. We don't agree on much, but on this Israel stuff, you are right. We must dismantle the Zionist entity piece by piece, okay? Of course, a violent apartheid structure over the course of 100+ years, you know, ethnic cleansing and complete domination is going to have naysayers, is going to have violent resistance as a consequence of that. He was actually going to give me his Hezbollah banner. He had one in his back pocket, and he was going to wave it around. He was going to wave around the Hezbollah flag that he took out of his fucking out of his back pocket. That's where it was. And then Israel knew that it was going to happen right before he recited the Shahada, by the way, so that we could both be connected and find the light of Islam and Jannah together. You know, they stopped him. The fuck? Yeah, he was gonna, and then he was gonna toss out keffiyehs.
So by far the most
Sorry, here's some real news.
important news item of the previous week was not the insignificant assassination of Charlie Kirk by a video game obsessed Discord loser. It was the former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, being sentenced to 27 years in prison for planning and fumbling a coup attempt. This was a coup back in a coup attempt rather back in 2022, where like Bolsonaro first tried to like strategically instill doubt in like the reliability of the electoral system, and this also came after like Lula was like prosecuted in a clear political prosecution by clearly biased right-wing judges, which then came out as being bullshit later on. I have a whole video on that on my main channel, which I'll bring up and show you in a second here, so you can go and look at it if you want to learn more about that. This video right here, Operation Car Wash, how the US helped destroy Brazil's democracy. So go click that if you want to learn more about what preceded this. But apparently, like behind the scenes, apart from like that, just like trying to tell people, oh, the electoral system is corrupt, oh, that's why I'm going to lose, Bolsonaro was also planning with like military generals to try and do a coup, and no one really knew about this until much later, because it didn't actually end up doing much, at least that you could see in public, aside from there being like Brazil trying to do their own little shitty January 6th and just like raiding government buildings that were all empty at the time and like vandalizing them and stuff, which was like incited by Bolsonaro, but which didn't result in anything aside from like 1,000 of those people going to jail. And then after that, like there was an investigation into what was happening behind the scenes, and they found a bunch of shit about how like Bolsonaro was like legitimately planning with military generals and stuff to try and do like a coup to overturn the election results if he lost, which they clearly didn't end up actually doing, but they nonetheless planned to do it. And so, as the world-renowned newspaper, the BBC, which definitely does not stand for any sort of pornographic terms, your mind is so dirty, man, what's wrong with you, told us he has been sentenced to 27 years in prison because of this. 27 years in prison for plotting coup. Ha ha ha. Sorry, 27 years and 3 months. He's 70, by the way. or 70-something. A panel of 5 Supreme Court justices hand down the sentence just hours after they convicted the former leader. Perfect. They ruled
I have to chop this up so much for YouTube. God damn it.
he was guilty of leading a conspiracy aimed at keeping him in power after he lost the 2022 election to his left-wing rival.
And I'll probably have to delete this VOD.
Lula da Silva. Let's just say the left wing might not be the greatest scripter for him anymore, but we'll get to that in a minute. 4 found him guilty while 1 voted to acquit him. And the US was already trying to pressure Brazil with tariffs and shit to like get them to drop this case, because like Bolsonaro is like a close personal friend of Mr. Donald Trump, which is pathetic, honestly, obviously. But yeah, obviously he tried to like do a coup, or he tried and failed miserably. He never even got like past the planning stage, but obviously it's still criminal enough to warrant him being convicted. And in return for that, he's getting 27 years in the slammer. Bolsonaro is saying very funnily that this is all a plot to keep him from running in the 2026 election, which is very funny for a couple of reasons. He's been on the brink of death basically for like the last 10 years. He's in hospital like 10 times a year. There's no way that he could ever come close to winning another election. And also, the only reason he ever came to power in the first place is because Lula was imprisoned in what was explicitly later revealed to be a plot to put him into prison so that he couldn't run in the election. And then Bolsonaro immediately lost the second that he could. So for him to say that is very funny, but it's not like he has any chance anyway. So yeah, this is the biggest news of the previous week. I don't know anything about any people named Charles or Merck or anything like that. I don't know anything about that. I've never heard about that person at all. Definitely not the biggest news in the last week. I don't know, Charlie getting Merck doesn't really sound that important to me, but the former president of a country of, what is it, 150 million people? Hold on. I'm going to edit this part where I Google it out of the final VOD so that people think that I just have the exact population of Brazil memorized. But you guys will know the truth. You guys will know that actually I was looking it up and then I passed it off as me actually already knowing it in the VOD. Okay.
Uploads the clip. Keeps this in. Alright. Much respect to Bad Empanada, but he doesn't like when people watch his stuff without some personal invective. It is difficult for people in America to worry about what's happening in the West Bank, like lynchings, when lynchings continue to happen in the United States.
We're following tonight at 6, the tragic death of a student at Delta State University. The body of a freshman at the university located in Cleveland, Mississippi, was found sadly hanging from a tree on campus early this morning. Disturbing for all of those on campus. Officials with the university say there is no evidence of foul play. WRG's Mike Sirianni has more from the Delta State campus.
His legs and arm are broken.
Earlier today, Delta State staff discovered a deceased individual on campus. University police and local,
or at least one leg and both of his arms. I don't remember, but there was definitely foul play. The police systematically cover up hate crimes.
Local authorities were immediately notified and are conducting an active investigation.
During a Monday afternoon press conference on the campus of Delta State University, it was announced the body of 21-year-old Demartravian Trey Reed of Grenada, a freshman at DSU, was found hanging from a tree near the pickleball courts not far from the campus cafeteria.
I've spoken to Trey's family and expressed our heartbreak.
The discovery was made just after 7 a.m. Classes, as well as several events associated with the university's centennial, were canceled.
At this time, there's no evidence of foul play.
A joint investigation is being conducted by DSU Police, the Cleveland PD, Bolivar County Sheriff's Department, and the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation. University officials stress their belief the Delta State campus is one of the safest in Mississippi.
There is no evidence of a threat to campus, and there's no evidence that the campus is unsafe at this point. So I expect we resume normal operations as soon as possible.
Monday, I spoke with Trey Reed's mother. She did not want to go on
You should protest by not going to class.
Camera, but told me she has so many questions about what happened. She said she just talked to her son Friday that he was excited about attending Delta State University.
Drop out. Bankrupt the school.
He is a freshman. She can't find any reason for this tragedy. For your news leader in Cleveland, Mississippi, Mike Sirianni, WREG News Channel 3. Harper.
This got 1.53 1,000 views in 2 hours.
Black male student found dead hanging from a tree in Mississippi in the wake of the Charlie Kirk aftermath. The police are trying to say that it is a suicide, but reports are saying that his body was bruised, both arms were broken, and one of his legs. Take a listen.
Just today, it was reported that my cousin was found.
We heard this earlier. It's very hard to listen to.
The university held a press conference for Trey Reed and said this.
Approximately 7:05 a.m., the university police was notified of what appeared to be the body of a black male hanging from a tree central campus near the DSU pickleball courts. We later...
Black male student found...
It's crazy that there's not much reporting on this.
Officials have released the identity of a student who was found on a campus hanging from a tree this morning. Campus officials and police made the announcement just a couple of hours ago in a news conference. 16 WAPT's Ross Adams live in the studio this afternoon. He's been following the story at Delta State all day. Ross, what are investigators saying?
Well, Rory, we are just hours into the investigation of this disturbing discovery on the Cleveland campus. Now, here is what we know right now. According to the Delta State Police Chief, they got a call around 7 o'clock Monday morning. First officers on the scene found the body of 21-year-old DeMartravion Trey Reed. He was hanging from a tree near the pickleball court that's in the central part of the campus. Reed is a Delta State student from Grenada. Now, there is already rampant social media speculation about what happened to Reed. At this point, investigators say there is no evidence of foul play.
But we, of course,
keep playing this fucking lie.
Investigation, Cleveland Police Department and the Bolivar County Sheriff's Office to assist them in the investigation. Today was supposed to be a happy day on the jet.
Oh my God. The first comment, we know what the fuck this is. 10 likes. 1 hour ago. 1 hour ago. As old as the video. Yep, time to weapon up if you haven't already. Protect yourself, family, tribe, and everything else you have. God damn. No foul play, huh? I was told both legs were broken. Come on, people, we know what this is about. I am MAGA, but we do not stand for this no matter what. Oh my God. Murder. Demons are walking around. Both legs were broken. People know what this is about. Is there footage? I'm not gonna play it if there is, but I'll definitely look for it off stream. Crazy work. Nobody's talking about that. Oh, cool. Yeah, this is what they mean by arm up.
Oh, bro. That man. Call to.
He said, tighten up, soldier.
Come on, stop it up. Raise wall.
I can feel it.
Made burgers, hell yeah. Sounds good. Someone's got 2 swords? Hell yeah, dude.
Keep your head on the swivel.
This is
No,
the...
he shouldn't. Fuck.
Shots fired from outside the group.
Where's it coming from, bro?
Hey, we got action up on
Oh, everybody relax. Everybody relax. Everybody stay the fuck down.
This is from Lafayette, Louisiana.
That's right. That's right. Sit tight.
NFAC militia. All they were doing was a demonstration, which you can do. Even if you have guns, you can do an organized demonstration. Nazis have done it recently.
Lock. Hold on. Lock. Fall back. You have no jurisdiction right now. Get the fuck back. Come on, man. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up. Back up.
Strongly policing themselves.
Somebody said they wanted to make America great again. Nah. What they meant by make America great was when it was great for them, but fucked up for you.
Right.
I can't remember a time in this country when it was great for us. Let me see, was it great during slavery? Hell no. Was it great during Reconstruction? Hell no, they burnt all our shit down. Was it great during Jim Crow? Nah, we couldn't even come in the front door. Was it great during the 70s when we started to get our shit together? Nah, because then they hit us in the 80s with crack. Maybe it was in the 90s when everything was great because they figured out how they could make money off our rap music and turned it into some negative shit that brainwashes our kids now. And some of y'all ain't got no goddamn morals because you programmed by the music that's not controlled by us. Yeah. Maybe it happened in 2000 after 9/11 and they snatched all our goddamn liberties and now they tell you when to go to bed, when to wake up, what you can and can't do. Maybe it was then. No, it wasn't then either. Maybe it was shit it never was. It ain't never been great for black people in this country. Stop telling us that goddamn lie. And don't act like it happened so long ago. It was only 156 years ago. That's 2 lifetimes. You can't fix 400 years of fucking people over in a...
There are people alive today who had to drink from a different fucking water fountain.
150 years.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to say it for everybody that's been shot and died, or at the hands of the police, or somebody's been racially transgressed against. When I ask you this time, you should put your fist in the air, not because it's cute, but because you mean it. Black power! Black power! Black power!
The white news reporter asked me, he said, why y'all black men down here with all these guns? I said, why not? Why the fuck not? Huh? Like I said, the bullshit stops with this generation. I want everybody.
Look at the size of that banana clip. Holy God. Louisiana is nuts, dude. You know he wouldn't have brought that out if it wasn't legal. That thing curls all the way up to the tip of the barrel, damn near. Fuck.
Before I get to these guns, look here. Every young brother, I want you to learn a skill and a trade, man. Start you a business. And then hire your little partners to work for your business. And then after that, keep them fucking felonies off your record. If you got some non-violent felonies on your record, holler at some attorneys and get them bitches expunged off your record. So you can start carrying these guns and come and stand with your people when it's time.
And even if you do have a felony, you can still carry a crossbow. There is actually a crossbow brigade, part of the Black Panthers.
And just stop talking shit on the internet, on social media. Choose your side of the history that you want to be on, man. You want to be one of the ones that was on the internet talking shit? Or you want to say you was out here with that iron? Huh? Hey, peace and love to my man, John Master J, man. I thank you for having me, my man. With great Grandmaster J. Grandmaster J. Black power!
Big iron, big iron.
Oh, it's been a shooting. Let's just roll in this motherfucking killer. Community policing is different. Everybody know everybody. So you stop shit before it happens. You know who did it because everybody know everybody and everybody's family. You know who live in your hood. We know who the thieves are. Just don't lay nothing around down. Don't lay nothing down around him. You know, he good dude, but just don't lay nothing down. He's thieves. We know him. Shit get missing. We know who did it. You understand? Somebody, you know, we know the boy got a bad temper. So somebody get knocked in the head. We know who did it. The idea is to stop the crime before it happens, not wait until the crime happens. Because what y'all got right now is reactionary policing. They show up, oh, it's been a shooting. Let's just roll in this motherfucker and kill everybody. Whereas if we say, look, bro, I know you think about killing dude. I've been watching the whole thing go down. Don't do that shit, bro.
And as we remember Trafer, we remember all of our brothers and sisters who died in their encounters with police. For our loved ones and for those who have died, may God grant them eternal rest. Grandmaster J, we are glad that you are here today. From Crispus Attucks to the Tuskegee Airmen. Grandmaster J, much love, NFAC. I need all NFAC members that's over there conversation. Get your ass up here on the stage. I'm dead fucking serious.
The cops have an obligation to bring the temperature down and stand between anyone who is heckling the peaceful demonstration. But where are they?
From the conversation,
they said
if I have to tell you this again, it'll be your last shit with me.
It's the people. People don't like him. He did some shit wrong.
You ain't gonna change no minds out here. These people are entitled to their opinions. They have to live here. Don't argue with a motherfucker in their own house.
I want to ask somebody to talk on the mic.
NFAC, let them boys talk. That's right, y'all gotta let people express themselves. We don't stop nobody from expressing themselves. That's what makes this country great.
Anytime to represent y'all to represent us, that's a coon, man. Get it from down there. That's a coon. That's a coon. I grew up with that man. That man been a bishop all his life. I watched that man pastor me. That's a coon. Get his pussy ass from up there.
Y'all thought we wasn't gonna come down here. But we never stayed anywhere past sundown. Because I hate to be real in the company of all of these proclamators of the gospel. Shit happens when the sun goes down. So even though we love y'all enough, I still gotta take care of my folks. So Lafayette, as we exit, you capture this on your phone. It's history. It's gonna happen again, but this is the first that has happened in Louisiana. We love all y'all. You're our brothers and sisters. And I could have been anywhere in the world, but I chose to come be with y'all today. And so did the NFAC. NFAC, form up. We're going back the way we came. And we want y'all to remember, the next time we come back, y'all should look just like us. We love all of y'all. NAC, form up.
These weapons is best all stored them away properly. Return to where you came from in the method that you came in. I love all of y'all and stay tuned. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell y'all. Oh, I know my bad. No, my bad. Oh shit, I forgot to tell y'all. NFAC, y'all ready to get a paycheck? Yeah, they gonna wish they had joined, ain't they?
Me too,
I'm gonna let y'all know what we've been working on. I want to see everybody that's been going in their pockets to make this shit happen. Up to this point, we ain't accept no donations or nothing. We wanted to show y'all that group economics work, that we can spend our own money to do our own thing, but that shit is over.
I need this picture. It's on there.
How many of y'all watch Facts Over Film? Yeah. How many of y'all have ever heard me talk about that?
Alright, I think I'm gonna leave it there. Unfortunately, might have to delete this VOD, but it's alright. Just take solace in that the resistance is here, and it's real.